Garrett Wilson versus Pat Surtain is going to be fucking must-see TV.
Yep.
That is going to be such an interesting matchup to watch. Like, I am so excited to see that. It's going to be incredible. And the best part about it is you guys have a quarterback that's going to be willing to test Pat Surtain. Because in most instances like that, most quarterbacks are just going to be like, well, Lazard, hope you're ready for a big day. Rodgers says, no, fuck you, Surtain. Show me that you're half as good as your daddy was. Let's see what you're like. Let's see what you're about. Alrighty, welcome everybody back to another video here on the channel. If you don't know who I am by now, my name is David. I also go by Miller Football, and I have been doing a series here on this channel throughout the summer where I'm talking about all 32 teams in depth leading up to the 2023 NFL season. And because I am a Chicago Bears fan, I cannot give that personal in-depth insight on 31 out of the 32 teams. So to combat that, I have been bringing on guests for every single episode, actual fans of the teams. If it's not apparent by all of the green behind the gentleman to my right, we're going to be talking about the New York Jets today. And of course, for I think the second time this summer, we have the entire returning cast from last year's team preview back at it. So to my right, we've got Matt O'Leary, and then down below me, we've got the guys from over at Breaking Down the Tape, Hector and Papa Smurf. So before we dive into this today, how are you guys doing today?
Good, man. Chilling.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm excited. I'm ready to talk some football.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
I'm feeling fantastic. I'm feeling like a Super Bowl run.
It took just over a minute for Super Bowl to get dropped. Honestly, took a little longer than I expected. I'm not gonna lie.
That's fair. I had over under at 30 seconds.
That's great.
But obviously, the big reason why you guys are probably feeling yourselves right now is because the Jets made a trade for a quarterback. And not just any quarterback, but the man who has been the bane of my existence for 20 years, all 20 years that I've spent on this planet. That is, of course, Aaron Rodgers. So I'm sure I can know where this is going to go, but I got to ask at the top of this, how does it feel to have a quarterback like that on your roster?
Like having sex.
That's a good one. Yeah, we're not used to this kind of hype around that position. It's been a lot of a revolving door. I mean, as unfortunate to say it, but as a Bears fan, I think you know the story all too well as well. And hopefully, you found your answer with Justin Fields. But yeah, we're excited. We're excited.
Yeah, I mean, just to be in the position. I mean, like we've seen this movie before, right? Like it was called Brett Favre, so we kind of we remember the excitement, but it feels better now because even when Brett Favre came to the Jets, I don't think anyone who really knew the Jets or knew the situation really expected it to last, right? We all knew what he was doing. He just wanted to get out of his no trade to an NFC North team, so he just went to the Jets. We knew it was only going to be for a year, maybe two, and then go over to the Vikings. We all knew what it was, but this time, like for Rodgers to come in and then take that pay cut and be around for the long term, support Zach Wilson, support the other, like what we're seeing now is just more of a full entrenchment in the system. And it's exciting. It's really exciting.
I mean, I also see it in the fact that, like how you mentioned, Zach, we knew what Brett Favre was doing, and he was by far well out of his prime by the time the Jets got him. And although he gave us, a pretty decent season and we had like the defense and the pieces around, but we knew Brett Favre wasn't going to be Brett Favre. It's a different feeling with Aaron Rodgers because although, he's 39 years old, the man still plays like he's 20 years old and the man still got all the skill sets and he's just a mastermind when it comes to playing chess to people playing checkers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, first of all, thank you for taking him away. I really appreciate it. Truly. But I can't imagine the excitement of just obviously I'm excited about Justin Fields as a Bears fan, but there's still question marks with that, right? We don't know if he's going to be the guy. You're still kind of waiting on that. I think he will be, but it's not set in stone. Aaron Rodgers, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback already. We know that. He had a down year last year, but when you look at the fact that he had no weapons, he lost his offensive coordinator that he worked super well with. His offensive line was banged up. He was playing hurt. as much as I want to sit here and say Aaron Rodgers sucked last year and he's never going to be a good again and his reign of terror is finally over, I don't think that's realistic, especially when you consider all of the benefits he's going to have in New York with much improved weapons, much improved offensive line, a much improved defense on the other side of the ball. Like, he is not only still a super talented football player, but he has everything around him built perfectly. It is the perfect storm for Aaron Rodgers just to walk in, say, all right, time to fuck shit up, and then just go and proceed to fuck shit up. Like, point blank, period.
I'm really glad you said that too, because it feels like a lot of fans of outside teams kind of just look at it was like, oh well, the Jets finished 7-10. I don't know why they're bringing this guy in, and then they look at the numbers from last year. It's like, oh well, Rodgers is done. This is just going to be a disaster. So I was glad to hear from your perspective that you think this is going to work, because it sounds like most people I talk to who aren't fans of the New York Jets are expecting this to fail miserably.
And I got to build off of what Matt was saying, like, to hear people forget so readily that the Jets were in contention for the top of the AFC East for the first half of the season. I mean, they finished barely below 500. Now, it wasn't great, but you know what I mean? Like, they finished with a semi-respectable record for starting almost 5 starting quarterbacks, and for half of the year battling with the Bills for first place. So, I mean, I love it when people are like, oh, great, the Jets picked up Aaron Rodgers just to go 9-8. Buddy, what did we talk? You're giving Aaron Rodgers 2+ wins over the likes of Zach Wilson, Chris Trevler, Mike White, Joe Flacco. You're telling me that's only worth 2? You know what I mean? Like, it's astounding. Like, I get it, right? It's the Jets, and I'm sure every Jets fan at their heart has that. Oh my God, it's the Jets. We're gonna screw this up somehow. But you can't tell me 2 wins. Aaron Rodgers isn't worth 2 wins. That's worth fighting for top dog.
Yeah, bandwagoning off of that, it just doesn't make sense when we were 7-3, and I get it. We lost the last 7 games of the season. We started to spiral, QBs getting hurt. Then we started getting some individual players on the line getting hurt, and sporadic around the offense and defense. But to bring in a 4-time MVP, a guy who's taken the Green Bay Packers to how many consecutive 13-win seasons, multiple NFC championship games, to say from 7 wins to 9 wins and you'll barely make the playoffs is just, I get it. As Jets fans, we're super hyped, but that's just doesn't make sense. It just does not make sense. You give Aaron Rodgers everything he wants and more, plus his best friends, and we've already got a Super Bowl caliber defense. I don't see 9 wins. I don't understand the people's hatred for what Aaron Rodgers is or who he is. And I firmly believe that what was happening in the Green Bay organization the last, I would say, 2 years that he was there was a huge part, especially once the Jordan Love draft pick came through, of it was all internal of him finally being like, I'm throwing my hands up and I just don't want to play for you guys no more.
Absolutely. And I think, Hector, you hit the nail on the head with how much of what was going on towards Rodgers' end of his tenure in Green Bay was not him, but the organization. Like, you look at Rodgers just in the face his last couple years in Green Bay, he looked dead inside. He was defeated. He looked exhausted. Not even half a year in New York, he looks like he's been completely rejuvenated. He looks like a completely new man. He has life again. He's smiling. He's happy. He's enjoying his time. He's mentoring his backup. Like, he's a new man. He's completely reborn in Green Bay and in New York, excuse me. And I think a big reason, at least from my perspective, right? Something I think I've noticed a little bit when you guys are talking about people being really low on the Jets right now and saying that Rodgers is only going to give them 2 wins. I think when you have a quarterback that's so polarizing off the field like Aaron Rodgers, there's going to be a large percentage of people that are going to root for him to fail, right?
Sure.
Like, now that he's out of Green Bay, I don't care about him personally. I don't care if he succeeds or not. I think it would actually be great if you want to ring in New York just as a fuck you to the Packers. But
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you have a lot of Bears fans that are going to shit on him, and you have all the AFC East fans that are going to look at him and be, like Matt said, his numbers sucked last year. He's not a good quarterback anymore. And you see all these different fan bases that have been tortured by Rodgers and think Rodgers is this terrible person off the field. They're not going to want him to succeed.
I mean, I want to just add in real quick. I mean, as much as us being Jets fans, we didn't want the Jets to be on Hard Knocks. We didn't want the extra publicity. We didn't want the extra media. We just wanted our team to go out there, get accustomed to how Rodgers wants to run his offense, go out there and let's try to win a chip. But being on Hard Knocks is showing the other side of what people don't think Rodgers does. He's been to every OTA. He's been to every training camp practice. He's taking every single part of the team different days of the week to dinner. He's taking the offense to dinner, the wide receiver group, the running backs, the linemen. He's taking the D-line out to dinners. He's getting it. And the big thing that you said, he didn't want to mentor Jordan Love. He has easily accepted Zach Wilson as his little son.
I'm with you. I think that Rodgers has put a lot of the negative narratives to bed, honestly, from the time he's gotten to New York. Like, he was there for all the OTAs, which everyone said, he's not showing up to OTAs. He did not miss a single one. He was there the whole time. He was getting to know the teammates, the young guys, and of course they brought in some veterans that Rodgers, knows and loves, and Randall Cobb, Allen Lazard, and some other, former Green Bay Packers, but. Like, I don't know. I feel like he's taking this role as that, grizzled vet with this young core and like really accepting it where, so many people were saying, oh, he's going to want his guys and that's it. But he already has a good connection with Garrett Wilson. We saw it in the preseason action against the Giants last week, but all training camp long, the two of them have been on the same page. So, I mean, I can't wait for that.
Oh, that's going to act. That's gonna get said so many times. Rodgers, Wilson. It's gonna get. I was gonna say it's gonna get old. It's never gonna get old. I could hear that a million times.
I mean, let's just put it out there right now. I had a fantasy draft last night, and I had to pick number 2, and I did it. I homered. Wow. Garrett Wilson, number 2 pick in the fucking draft. Number 2 pick, and I went with it.
I love it. I respect it.
Bold.
But hey, listen, I can tell you right now, I firmly believe that's going to pay dividends. I think Garrett Wilson's going to be off the fucking charts this year. You give him a real quarterback after having an offensive rookie of the year campaign, he's going to go nuclear. Like, he's such an incredible football player. And, we saw what happened last time Aaron Rodgers had an incredible wide receiver that wore the number 17 and the connection and chemistry that grew there. And, how his numbers, just only went up, right? And I think we're going to see that from Garrett Wilson. I think this is going to be a year where if he doesn't cement himself as it, he's at least going to be in most people's top 5 conversations for best receiver in football. And I think by the end of year 3, assuming he gets 2 years with Rodgers, which unless things go catastrophically bad, I think he will get 2 years with Rodgers. He will absolutely have himself in the top 5 within the next couple of years. Like, I am such a big Garrett Wilson fan, and I really think, getting Rodgers is just going to transform him as a player and really show people what he's made of. And you think that guy on one side of the ball, Sauce Gardner on the other side of the ball, both super young, both going to be superstars. I'm so jealous of you guys. I'm not going to lie. Like, I like where the Bears are headed, but there's so many incredible fun things on the Jets right now. And it blows my mind that people are looking at this team as like a 9-win football team.
Right? Like, offensive rookie of the year. We actually had 2 offensive rookies of the year. If Breece Hall didn't get hurt, he's offensive rookie of the year. And Garrett Wilson is maybe a vote behind. You know what I mean? And again, that's with 4 starting quarterbacks. You put it perfectly. Now you give him a Hall of Fame quarterback, and Garrett was. I mean, I think top 3, top 2 receiver in the league, and he's so fun to watch. I mean, he's freakish with his just sense of defenses and sense of the ball, and then you combine that with amazing route running, amazing footwork, and it's if you know the game, not just watching football, but if you know the game, it's just it's fucking fun to watch him play football.
Mhm.
You got Brees still coming back. It's fun to watch him move. You know, now you add Dalvin Cook. You get AVT coming back. My boy, big ticket Mekhi Becton slimming down, accepting his role at right tackle, which is huge. You know, it's gonna be fun football, and that's not even to talk about the top 3 defensive line that they have and top 5 backup defensive line that they have. Or defensive rookie of the year, DJ Reed, who's probably one of the better cornerbacks in the league that nobody ever talks about. Ashton Davis,
Mhm.
who somehow, some way continues to live to fight another day and makes flashes across the screen as one of the better safeties in the league, and then disappears again and comes and goes as he pleases. But it's it's gonna be a good year. Please let it be a good year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been through it, man. Like Jet fans deserve this, and I
Yes,
mean, same for
Certainly.
Chicago. Like Chicago fans, I feel like Jets and Bears fans have a lot in common with the
Mhm.
quarterback history over the last few years, and just always kind of the Packers are like the Patriots for us for all those years,
Mhm.
but 12 years, no playoffs, longest active playoff drought in the sport. Like Ryan Fitzpatrick has the most passing touchdowns in Jets history. Like that can't be anymore. Like that's so upsetting. But yeah, I think Rodgers breaks that with, I don't know, 10 plus of those going to Garrett Wilson this year.
And I feel like people in general, fans in general, have not really thought about our running back room. They're so mesmerized by the Super Bowl caliber defense we have, and so mesmerized by Rodgers coming in and teaming up with Wilson and some of the receivers that we have now, with McCole Hardman being possibly our 3rd or 4th string wide receiver, which man just won a Super Bowl last year with the Kansas City Chiefs. They tend to forget that, like Zach said, Brees Hall would have won Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, if he didn't get hurt. That man is coming back, and not only is he coming back, but he gets to take kind of a LeBron load management type of style right now, because you let Dalvin Cook, who also 4 years running of all-pro running back skills, 1,100 yards over 1,100 yards each of the last 4 seasons. You let him take the front end of the load, then finish up the second half. And what does Aaron Rodgers loves to do the most when he can't hit his number 1 receiver? Is check it down to a bubble or a screen pass and let the running back do his business.
Yep. And that was actually going to be my next question. Hector and Zach both kind of brought it up. Obviously, this running back room, despite what the numbers may suggest from last year, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but this was a good running back room last year. You had Brees Hall, who would have been Offensive Rookie of the Year had he not gotten hurt. You had Bam Knight, who kind of came out of nowhere, gave you guys a few good games. You had Michael Carter, UNC legend. You had Ty Johnson, who I have to bring up because he is from my hometown. Like there were a lot of fun running backs in this room last year, and obviously with Brees going down, that kind of dropped off what happened with the running back room last year. And now you bring in Dalvin Cook, you get rid of Bam Knight, which I mean, I don't think anyone's complaining about that. But just as a whole, what are your thoughts on the running back room with the changes that have occurred?
Yeah, for me, I think it's one of the best running back rooms in the game, to be honest with you. I think Michael Carter, who had a down year last year, is a prime candidate for a bounce back. I don't know if it was just playing through injuries or that line down the stretch got really, really banged up. I think that was a big problem for the Jets run game, was just how bad that offensive line was down the stretch. But I think he looks more like the rookie version of what we saw from him in 2021, where he looked like at minimum he could be a solid like 1B in a tandem duo. And then you add Dalvin to it, like that gives Brees the opportunity to come back at his own pace. He doesn't have to come back and be the workload back from day one. I think he has the talent to do it, and I think eventually he gets to the point where he's kind of the bell cow back in this room. But for the first few weeks getting through with Dalvin Cook and Michael Carter, I think you do a lot worse than that. And then when all 3 are healthy and together, I can't wait to see what Nathaniel Hackett schemes up getting those guys on the field.
Matt put it perfectly. There's nothing I can say better than that. You have a 3-headed monster and Brees is going to be able to take his time coming back, be fully healthy before he takes a good workload, which is going to be paramount because I mean, the first half of the season is extremely tough. First 6 games, we got a lot of big teams to face, but it's we still got 17 to play in total, and having him healthy for the second half of the season, like completely, fully ready to go, while still having good running back room. I mean, what do you? Everyone's going to be on fresh legs all of the time. What are you going to do? How are you going to stop that? So it's still a fun running back room, and I'm excited.
I mean, the only thing I have to rebuttal on Zach that is it's not a 3-headed monster. It's a 4-headed monster.
Yeah, you got it.
We have 4 great running backs. We have Dalvin Cook, we have Brees Hall, we have Michael Carter, and people keep sleeping on this boy from Pitt, Izzy. And I'm not gonna mess up his last name. I'm gonna just call him Izzy because the shit is.
It's a Banacanda. I got you. It's a Banacanda.
That man, that dude is he is Brees Hall and Dalvin Cook smashed into one. The man has no problem taking a hit, hitting a spin move, jumping over you, and still can run a 4.3 40. Like, and granted, Dalvin Cook is only on a 1-year deal. And the way I'm looking at it, and I think the way the organization is looking at it is, let's see if Dalvin Cook gives us what what his prime self can give us. And he might walk next year, but at the same time, he walks and get the contracts he wants from another team. And we still got 3 top running backs where we don't have to spend paying him to come back to us.
Yeah. It's a beautiful running back room. And as someone who you guys know is a simp for a good run game, I am so excited to see what the Jets are going to have cooked up this year. Like, Brees Hall, I think, when healthy, like we've already talked about him. He would have been offensive rookie of the year last year, probably a top 10 running back when healthy. I would say he is, even based off a small sample size or whatever you want to call it. Dalvin Cook, the only gripe with him is last year he was kind of inefficient, but now he's going to be running behind an offensive line that had a better interior. There is going to be Aaron freaking Rodgers to rely on and kind of take some of the heat off of him. He's going to be splitting carries with guys that are better than Alexander Madison. Like, everything is perfect for Dalvin here. Like, it is the perfect storm. And I know from the outside looking in, a lot of people look at the Jets of having like an overabundance of running backs almost. And I saw some people looking at the Dalvin Cook signing being like, what is the point of that for anybody involved? But Dalvin is going to get to be more efficient. He's going to have a lot more juice. His legs are going to be a lot more fresh throughout the game is what I'm trying to say. And then the Jets, you're going to have him and Brees Hall and Michael Carter and Izzy Abanikanda all able to check in at any point at some point this season. And defenses are just going to be out of breath. Like, it's going to be really, really hard to keep up with those 4 in the same backfield. And that's not even mentioning Nick Bowden, who just got brought back up, if I'm not mistaken, to play fullback, which big W for that. You love to see it. Aaron Rodgers loves his fullbacks.
Yeah. And that's what it comes down to, is just wearing down defenses with that run game. And then you're going to blow them up over the top. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is master of the play action. So you suck in, the DBs, suck them inside into the box, and then goodbye, Garrett Wilson for 70 yards. McCole Hardman for 70 yards, Brownlee for 70 yards, Gibson for 70. I mean, just insert wide receiver name here for 70 yards after we've already run 100 yards per running back on you. I mean, it's for once, I feel like this is a really well thought through offense, which is something you don't get with the Jets. The Jets have always had a great defense. We're known for defenses, awesome. We're known for the ground and pound, awesome. But it's not just like this brutish, okay, we're going to hit you. It's going to be run down the middle, boom, 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 boom. It's like this, wow, there's a plan. I get it. I see the picture. I see the setups. I see what we put thought into an offense. Oh my God.
I loved your point about setting up the pass with the play action, because I think that's going to be such a key piece to this offense. I think another reason why I think the run game struggled so much down the stretch is because of how bad the quarterback play was. Defenses were loading the box, and these running backs had no chance. That's not going to happen with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. So they're gonna, they'll dare the Jets. If they dare the Jets to throw, they'll be able to throw the football now with Rodgers. And if they want to play back, well, then guess what? There's 3-4 running backs that they could run, right at you. So they might not have the flashiest wide receiver room outside of Garrett Wilson. There's, solid pros in that room, but I don't think they need that, star number 2 or stud number 2 receiver necessarily, because of, just the balance that they have. And we haven't even gotten to the tight ends yet with the tight end room. We know that Rodgers and Hackett like to utilize that, especially in the red zone. So I'm with you. I think it's going to be a balanced attack on offense.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
see. I just don't. I don't see what people are trying to portray what this offense is going to put out. Rodgers has already shown to have great connections with these guys. He's already shown to, and he's meticulous in who he's going to throw to. If you're not going to go out there and give 100% and catch the passes that he's going to put on a dime to you, then he just won't throw you the ball. He just won't throw you the ball. And I think the players are now starting to accept it and take it in like, all right, if I want to be on this field with this team, a chance of winning a Super Bowl, I need to be on the top of my game because Aaron Rodgers has a lot of say when it comes to this offense. And if you're not going to do your part, you will not be on that field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's one thing Rodgers will not put up with, it's half-assed, not giving 100% receiver play. And he has shown that. He has almost like lost games for the Packers just off being stubborn and not wanting to hit guys that he doesn't think are good enough or almost like worthy enough in a way to catch passes from him, just to, spam Lazard or feed MVS or whoever, right? We have seen that, especially last year. We saw a good bit of that, which understandably so. His receiver room last year was horrendous. But speaking of, we've been talking about Rodgers coming over, and obviously he likes to bring a lot of his buddies wherever he goes. We saw a bunch of those signings happen. But probably the most notable out of that group, or at least the most topically relevant given what happened last year, isn't even a player. It's Nathaniel Hackett, who was a head coach in the NFL in the 2022 season. And that is where I will stop with that out of respect. But just what are your thoughts on bringing him in as the offensive coordinator for the Jets?
Oof, yeah.
Well,
I mean, some guys are just meant to be coordinators and not head coaches. Like a perfect
yes.
example is someone that Jet fans know very well, Todd Bowles, not a head coach. Tampa Bay fans are realizing that right now, but great coordinator. And with Rodgers, look, I get it. The argument too was that he didn't necessarily call plays, but something that he did in Green Bay and did very well was the red zone, or the gold zone as he calls it. And the Jets have been historically one of the worst teams in the red zone. So adding someone who is a well-respected offensive coordinator and going from someone who was a first-time play caller and first-time offensive coordinator and Mike LaFleur, I think is just going to be a really big improvement. And it's a similar style of offense. It's going to be kind of that, West Coast scheme, outside zone runs and stuff like that, which I think is fine. But I think he's just going to have a little bit more of an awareness in certain situations that they didn't really have when they had LaFleur. So I'm on board with it. I think it's a fine hire for a coordinator.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. At first, when the Jets hired Hackett, I was not the world's biggest fan. Coming off the season that he did, and our experience with Adam Gase, oh, number one coordinator. Yeah, no shit. You had Peyton Manning. I could be the number one offensive coordinator if my quarterback's Peyton Manning. Hey, Peyton, go do your thing. Okay, now give me my awards. So that was kind of my feelings. Is like, all right, cool. You were a good offensive coordinator before, but like you had Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, clearly we're hiring you to get Aaron Rodgers, but if that fails, is that going to leave us with the Broncos? So I was not the world's biggest fan, but as I've seen more and more of the Jets play, of the Jets offense, of what's going on, obviously Hard Knocks, the media is getting to me. I am being bribed. The mind tricks are working. And like Matt said, some people just aren't good coaches. Todd Bowles, Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan is one of the greatest defensive coordinators in football for a long time. He's just not a great head coach. It's sometimes you just got to live in your little box, and there's nothing wrong with being great in your box. Some big pictures are just not meant for people. So, I've been won over. We'll see what the regular season looks like. But I mean, things obviously are looking great right now. The schemes are looking great right now. Things are meshing. There's not much I can complain about to this point with them.
Yeah, just going over both what Matt and Smurf said. Some coaches just aren't meant to be more than what they are. Some coaches can go from offensive or defensive coordinators or wide receiver coaches or whatever the case may be and move up the ranks to be a head coach or a GM or, whatever it is. And some coaches just aren't. And I think what scared me was the signing of Nathaniel Hackett before we got the solidification that Rodgers was coming. Because like Zach said, shit, what if we don't get Rodgers? What happens now? But at the same time, all the heat that Nathaniel Hackett was taking for being the head coach of the Broncos isn't all on him. Yeah. What happened to that team was not all on him. That starts from the top down. That starts from the organization being shit, from the owners being shit, from them putting together a team who you just got traded for Russell Wilson, and had one of the worst season of his career. So you can't 100% completely blame Hackett for what happened there, not mentioning the numerous counts of injuries they caught during that season. So to blame all Nathaniel Hackett for that isn't fair. For guys like Sean Payton to come at another coach is not fair. And you're just lighting a match under one of the greatest of all time quarterbacks we've ever seen, now surrounded by a shit ton of talent, knowing we have to face you around week 5 or 6.
Yeah, I can't wait for Rodgers to throw for 600 yards and 9 touchdowns in that game. I can't wait because he is petty. There's no way there's a run game against the Broncos. There's no running backs even suiting up for that game. It's just going to be all wide receivers, all pass plays because he's petty, and go fuck yourself. That's why. Rodgers is coming out for a revenge game against them, the Giants. I mean, I just love how this just builds to the Jets having beef with everybody, and I'm all about it. The villain arc is here, and I am so for it.
Yeah, talk about a game like I really had no interest in like the Jets Broncos game. Like it was just a game on the another game on the schedule, but now it's such a big storyline. And yeah, I want to run up the score, put up 40 on them, and just embarrass them in their own building. And that's I don't know why a coach would want to give another team bulletin board material like that. Just
especially Sean Payton, like this, bud.
Yeah,
it's not like you're some rookie head coach. It's not like you have it. Like you're a Hall of Fame head coach in your own right. You know this. What are you doing? Like, don't pretend that you haven't played an Aaron Rodgers conference before. Like, what are you thinking?
Right.
Bud?
Yeah. I will say, from that game, from an outside perspective, as great as it's going to be to watch the Aaron Rodgers or the fire lit up underneath Aaron Rodgers, like Hector pointed out, Garrett Wilson versus Pat Surtain is going to be fucking must-see TV.
Yep.
That is going to be such an interesting matchup to watch. Like, I am so excited to see that. It's going to be incredible. And the best part about it is you guys have a quarterback that's going to be willing to test Pat Surtain. Because in most instances like that, most quarterbacks are just going to be like, well, Lazard, hope you're ready for a big day. Rodgers says, no, fuck you, Surtain. Show me that you're half as good as your daddy was. Let's see what you're like. Let's see what you're about. And I respect the hell out of that. I'm so excited to see it. It's going to be so much fun to watch. And obviously, you have the extra added drama with it now. That should be game of the fucking week when it gets played. I don't know what time that game's scheduled for. I don't have the Jets schedule written down or anything. But that game is going to be incredible. I'm so excited for that football game. But yeah, I mean, you guys are getting the Rodgers experience, as Zach pointed out with the whole villain arc thing. Like, that's just him. Even though he is kind of like a more, I don't want to say bubbly version of Aaron Rodgers, but a more like approachable and less like, I hate everything and I'm an asshole, and more like, yeah, I'm the old man in the room, right? Even though you're getting that version of Rodgers now, it still comes with Rodgers. You are the villains. You are the bad guys. He is the bad man. That is what Bears fans have always called him. And you're going to get that. But I'm sure that would be super fun to embrace. I would like to embrace any role and not just be like village person number 14, like the Bears have been most of my life. It's
Well, I got it right here. The Jets play the Broncos October 8th at 4:30 on CBS.
That's getting flagged.
And just to, like you guys are saying, playing the they call us Gotham City for a reason. We have Batman. Like, we don't have a superhero. We have a vigilante. And that's what Roger is. And what's going to make that game even better is not the shit talking to Patrick Surtain just to himself. It's the point that you can point out that we have a better corner than you as well. Our corner's better than your corner. Our receivers are better than your receivers. Our quarterback is better than your quarterback. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, Russell Wilson's going to be running for his life that game. There's no way they don't pull out all the stops, offense, defense. There's no way. There's not a single person on that 53-man roster in that coaching staff that is absolutely not going to pull out the game of their life.
Nick Bodden touchdown. I'm calling it. I'm calling my shot right now.
Everybody's
happening.
A man on the offensive line of the Broncos, not to mention the plethora of DNs and linemen we have that we can cycle through, but there's not a man on that offensive side for the Broncos that can stop Quinnen Williams.
And
then you not very many men in the NFL that can stop Quinnen Williams.
And then you put him face down a quarterback who has been on the top of the leaderboard for sacks in his career. Russell Wilson gets sacked more than almost any other quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
Hey, which, by the way, speaking of that defensive line, when I said, I brought up earlier how jealous I am of the Jets, you guys are mean. You have too many good edge rushers, and it's not fair to those of us who don't have any. Like, I hate it because I look at the Jets defensive line and I'm like, he'd start, and it just goes down like 8 deep. There are at least 8 players on your defensive line that would start over Chicago starters. And I'm, again, so incredibly jealous of it because, oh my God, that Jets front four is gross. It is disgusting. It simultaneously makes me want to vomit, but also like I can't take my eyes away from it because it's going to kill somebody this year. Like someone is going to die playing against that New York Jets front. I don't know. I can't put into words how jealous and just mesmerized I am by not only the caliber of starters you guys have, but also the depth. It's insane. I mean, you had Jermaine Johnson last year. He was a first-round pick, played less than Michael Clemens, and is now like the 5th or 6th best guy on your defensive line. And it's not even like he's a bust or he sucks. Like, he's good. Again, he would start in Chicago.
He started on 31 other teams.
Yeah,
pretty much.
But he's still like the 5th best guy there. And that's absurd.
I said it before, and I don't think you caught it. We have a top 3 starting defensive line and a top 5 backup defensive line. Like, our backup defensive line is starters on 31 other teams, is a top 5 line in and of themselves. And look, I'm not going to lie. I still want to go to the well. I hear Nick Bosa might be unhappy out there in San Fran. Look, man,
Hey, we can get Rodgers to restructure again.
What did the Rams say before they won the Super Bowl? Man, fuck them picks. Give me Nick Bosa. Let's get this thing. If we're going for it, let's get it.
Yeah, it's really scary when you look at, as you're saying, the depth. Like that second team defensive line is probably Will McDonald, who's a first-round pick, Jermaine Johnson, who's a first-round pick, Al Woods, who's been in the league forever and is a steady interior guy, and then I don't know, Michael Clemens is the other interior defensive lineman on that second
Bryce
line.
Huff.
Yeah, right. And Bryce Huff, right? Another one. One of the
Marcus Smart, who's coming from the practice squad and trying to get a starting role.
Tanzel Smart.
Tanzel
Smart. Yeah.
Sorry, Tanzel Smart. I'm over here thinking NBA, Boston Celtics and shit.
I was gonna say, there's no way there's 2 dudes in New York both named Marcus Smart. That would be crazy.
I'll take Marcus Smart too if he wants to come play football. Shit, I'll take all the players.
Yeah, I can't wait. What's the number? 50 sacks this year? How many are they gonna end up with?
What did the Eagles have last year? Like per person? Yeah. Whatever. I know the Eagles last year, I want to say, were 2nd all time in sacks by a team in the regular season, which I think the 85 Bears still hold the record. either the 85 or the 86 Bears. I always forget which one. But I wouldn't be shocked if the Jets broke whatever the number is. It's something in the 50s.
And I mean, the only weakness that really the Jets have is over the middle with the linebackers. But I mean, give me man-to-man outside, and you've got less than 2 seconds to throw that ball. You better hope you hit that quick slant over the middle, because it's just, you're going to be running for your life. It's just, everyone talks about, we got September 11th against the Bills, and everyone, oh, it's Josh Allen, it's the Bills, they're going to destroy the Jets. Yeah, here's the thing, though. Josh thinks he's big, and he is big. He's a big dude. He'd murder me in a heartbeat. But he's not bigger than Quinnen Williams. He's not bigger than Jermaine Johnson, Bryce Huff. Like, he for his own sake, and I like Josh Allen. I do, for him being a division rival. I like him, but he better hope to learn to protect himself before September 11th, because he's going to be walking away from that game hurt if he keeps trying to hold on to that ball and play hero ball, because they're going to come for it. They're coming for him.
Listen, I know the joke's going to sound wrong,
ball,
but there's going to be more than just the Twin Towers that fell on September 11th. Josh Allen is going to go down.
I was going to go there, but I didn't think it was like...
Yeah, I'm sorry. Josh Allen is going to get hit. He's going to get hit hard. And the fact that he and Stephon Diggs is not on the same page is only making it worse.
Yeah.
I can confidently
say
that's...
want to come to New York as well, we can make that happen.
I just want to say, I can confidently say that's probably the only 9/11 joke that'll be made in any video I ever upload. So congrats to Hector for that. You are making history. We're just gonna move on, because I don't know
roll right on by that.
Right, like I don't know how to go about approaching that delicately.
You don't.
Right.
Hey, I have brothers that fall for that. Don't worry.
But yeah, like the Jets defensive line, I mean, even last year, despite everything on offense being dog shit, the defense was incredible, and it's only going to get better. You're getting Sauce Gardner in year 2. The defensive line's incredible. The only worry I have with the Jets defense, I'm less worried about their less worried about their linebackers and more worried about their safeties. And we can talk about that here when we get into the defense as a whole, because I think that's more of an interesting conversation. But looking at what the Jets did last year, which is something that unfortunately we have to talk about, this is a team that was 7-10, 4th in the AFC East, 3-5 at home, 4-5 on the road, and then 0-5 in their last 5 games. So just kind of as a whole, what were your thoughts on the Jets season last year?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was really a tale of 2 seasons. Like, the first half was amazing and the most fun I've had watching the Jets probably in close to 10 years.
Sanchez.
Yeah, really, since that 2010 season. It was a lot of fun. They were rolling, but down the stretch, it was really the offense that was the issue. The defense, even during that losing streak, look at the scores of those games that they lost. It was low scoring games. And it wasn't their fault. It wasn't the defense's fault why they were losing games. It was solely on the offense, and specifically the quarterback play was just not good enough. So it was a bummer to start out so hot and then crumble like that, but the foundation was set, I think, for the future. And you knew, like, okay, they have to do something here at the quarterback position. And I think they kind of got the best of both worlds, where you bring in the guy who can help you now, and there's still hope, and it might just be only a little bit of hope that you could maybe get something out of Zach Wilson sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for a couple of years. But that's not even something I'm worried about right now. I just kind of want to enjoy the Rodgers era for however long that is. But yeah, that's why they made such an aggressive move at the quarterback position, because to me, that was really the only thing holding this team back last year.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was accentuated perfectly. What was it? The second time the Jets played the Patriots, Zach Wilson throws 4 interceptions, and they still only lose by like 7. I mean, the defense was in the entire season keeping them even remotely relevant, even towards the end when they stopped being relevant. It really did just come down purely to quarterback play. We've solved the issue. Obviously spent 31 years as a Jets fan, so there's always the nagging thought in the back of my head, it's still the goddamn Jets. So I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop, But like Matt said, I'm just trying to live in this enjoyment and keep my excitement. Well, talk to me again in like week 5 or week 6 if I bought more stock in Jameson to drown my sorrows away. But right now, I'm hopeful. Right now, I see the team that started off last season. I see the team that was in first place for a couple of weeks and right on the heels of the Bills for the next couple of weeks. So there's a lot. I mean, we could talk about on paper all of these things that lend to the Jets going 14-3, 13-4, those kind of numbers. We just got to put it all together on the field, and it looks like we're trending that way. But it's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be something. It's gonna be something to watch no matter what. I just hope everybody embraces this whole villain arc thing, because I think that's their role. I think that's going to be their role in the league, is just to play the villains, and that's damn fine by me.
Yeah, I mean, like Matt said, it was a tale of 2 seasons. It was a roller coaster ride. We had the highs of the highs, and then we caught well below the lows, the lowest we can go. Especially on ending the season on a 7-game losing streak after starting 7-3. But we corrected one of the biggest issues, which is bringing Aaron Rodgers in, because we need a quarterback. And we've started to correct, and I still think we can still make some improvements on the offensive line to protect Rodgers, to make sure the run game can, hit their holes and open up the pass game. But like Zach said, the defense the entire time kept us in every single game. It just sucks when the defense makes a stop. You go out there, 2 plays in, you're turning the ball over, and we got a bunch of 11 tired guys running back on the field trying to stop us, trying to make a stop again. So now we're at a point where we have a quarterback that likes to chew up the clock, that likes to methodically plan out how he's going about every single play and give his defense time to rest, and the offense still gets to thrive. I mean, what more can you ask for? You're bringing in a 4-time MVP. There hasn't been an MVP in the Jets organizations, I think, since like fucking Joe Namath. So, I mean, the only thing I want to pump the brakes on some of the people's expectations of the Jets is that it has to be Super Bowl or bust. That's where I want to pause people. We can't go out and expect him to pull a Tom Brady with the Bucks or Matt Stafford with the Rams. This is more of the Jets are going about it their own way. Now, I will say it's a failure of a season if we don't make an AFC championship game. But to say they need to win the Super Bowl year 1, I don't necessarily agree. Now, next season, if we're not at least in the dance, then we can say this was a complete failure.
Yeah. And I think the big thing that you guys have on your side, above all else, is once you get to the playoffs, Rodgers doesn't have to play the 49ers anymore. So who knows what can happen once you hit the postseason.
No, if you watch Hard Knocks and you ask that mentalist dude, they're gonna have to play him in the big game. So we'll see how that plans out.
Well,
look, the NFL
sure.
script writers might want to take note of all the storylines that would come out of a Jets-Niners Super Bowl. I mean, Salah playing his old coach, Niners playing Aaron Rodgers and his beef with them. There's a lot going on. So when the NFL writers watch this show, I'm just saying, cut me a slice of that action. I came up with it.
Yeah, listen, we got to get the fullback bowl going too. You got Juszczyk versus Bowden. Absolutely, give them both a tutty.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah, now I'm starting to think maybe you're on that writing core over there.
Shh. I can't reveal my secrets too much. Okay, let's just say there's a reason the last fullback to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl was Kyle Juszczyk. Okay, well, we'll leave it at that. No, but yeah, it's no matter what, this season, and I think Matt and Zach kind of hit the nail on the head perfectly bringing it up. This is a Jets team where fans can live in the present right now. They don't have to be thinking about the future. And I know from experience what it's like going into a season and being like, well, it'll be fun to watch football this year, but really I'm looking forward to the offseason, right? I'm I can't speak for Jets fans, but just judging off of the teams they've had, at least in the past decade, this is probably one of the first seasons in the past 10 years where you can actually look forward to the football that's going to be played and have expectations and have optimism and, not just be looking forward to the draft and spending money in free agency. Like, you get to actually go out every Sunday and be like, okay, one step closer to the big game, another step closer to the big game, and repeat and repeat and repeat. And I've never felt that feeling. Well, kind of. 2018 was the closest I got, but I'm sure that's an amazing feeling to look at, especially after last year, where we've talked about the quarterback play at length. Zach Wilson, Mike White was looked at as like the greatest thing since sliced bread in New York there for a couple weeks. Chris fucking Strevler, Joe Flacco at age like 79, like the quarterback play in New York last year, and Matt brought it up early on, I'm no stranger to bad quarterback play, was atrocious. And I mean, that really was the big downfall of the team. Like, you look at the numbers, you look at the EPA per play stats, right? This is a team that was 22nd in rushing, 30th in passing, which is actually the number would be the second lowest because two teams tied for 32nd.
Nice.
They were 16th in run defense, 5th in coverage. So the defense was where it needs to be. You want to have a top 5 coverage unit and be at least middle of the pack in run defense for good defense, right? And the run defense, we'll actually talk about why that was middle of the pack and not higher. And it's really interesting and I think kind of funny why it was. It was a scheme thing. And then you look at points, they were 29th in points scored with 296, yet they were 4th in points allowed with 316, giving them 19th in point differential with -20. So like, not only was it a tale of two halves of a season, it was almost a tale of two teams. Because, we've already brought up defense good, offense bad last year. That was the story of the 2022 New York Jets. And this year, it's going to be defense really fucking good, offense also probably really fucking good, if not at least competent. There's no world where this offense is not at least middle of the pack. And that would have to have like, something catastrophically bad happen. A couple offensive linemen go down, or God forbid, Garrett Wilson go down, knock on wood, something like that. You're looking at like Alan Lazard as wide receiver 1. Like, this team, no matter what, the main point of this, there's so much more optimism to have for this year after last year. And I'm sure now, looking at it in hindsight, dealing with the quarterback play and everything you had to deal with last year just became absolutely worth it.
Oh, 100%. Like, I don't know, going from, if you told me a year ago when we did this show, that Aaron Rodgers is going to be the quarterback the following year, we all would have said, what? That doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? But you're right. It's almost too, when you look at the quarterback play and pick one, whether it's Flacco, Mike White, Wilson, or Chris Strevler having to come in and play football, it's almost a minor miracle they made it to 7 wins with that quarterback.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of a testament to, one, how good the defense was, and then how freaking good Breece Hall and Elijah Vera-Tucker were too, because the run game specifically went right down the tubes once those two guys got hurt and they lost them for this season after that Denver game. So, getting those guys back healthy is going to be so huge. And like you said, even if they're middle of the pack offensively, which I think they'll be better. I don't know if they're going to be a top 3 unit, but I think they'll push top 10. And with that defense, there's no reason that they aren't, competing for a division in the Super Bowl. That's how good this team can be.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it. I want my Super Bowl win now. I'm getting real impatient. I want my Super Bowl win now. But no, realistically, you look at the schedule, right? I mean, we all do when the schedule drops, and you try and think, all right, who can we beat? And in years past, as a Jets fan, you're like, all right, we're definitely not winning that game. We're not winning that game. We might have a chance here, if Dak Prescott continues to throw interceptions, and maybe we've got this one, and we can kind of, if all goes right, maybe we'll split with the Patriots, maybe we'll split with the Bills, maybe we'll split with the Dolphins. There's not a single game on this schedule that I'm like, yeah, no, you know what? I've either got the Jets by a country mile, or I've got us like at 50.5 or 51% take. You know what I mean? Like, I think we've got better than a coins flip in every single game, and it's been a minute since I think I could say that about, well, then 16, now 17 games. There's no way It's just there's no way that it's competent. That it's not, to me, Matt said pushing top 10. I can't imagine that we're not top 10 in offense. I can't imagine that we're not top 5 in defense. I might be a little bit high on the train right now, but no, there's just, I look at all 17 games and there's not a single game that I'm like, yeah, I don't take us by at least 50% in that matchup.
No, yeah, and to point out, last year we went, if I'm correct, I think it was 7 or 8 full quarters without throwing a touchdown.
Yeah,
7 or 8, like it's literally equivalent to 2 whole fucking games of not throwing an offensive touchdown. I would bet my life that Aaron Rodgers is not going to allow that to happen. There is no way in hell that Aaron Rodgers goes more than a quarter or 2 without throwing a touchdown. It's almost impossible. I mean, the man has probably the best touchdown to interception ratio in all of football. To say that he'll go more than 2 or 3 quarters without throwing, and like you said, Mike, we had a negative 20 or 25 point differential. That is going to be probably the biggest flip over from last year to this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's offensively, it's going to be a different football team. Everything's going to be completely different. The only thing I would say stays the same is the way the run game is executed. But even then, it's going to be more efficient. You're going to get more yards out of it. It's going to be more effective. It's going to be more fun to watch. But other than that, the offense, the way the passing game is ran, is going to be completely flipped on its head. The numbers are going to be flipped on its head. The efficiency, the scoring, the excitement, everything about that offense, especially in the passing game, is going to be the polar opposite of what it was last year. Like I said, they were 30th in passing EPA per play. I would not shocked if they were top 3 next year. Yeah. Like it's going to be a different offensive football team, and the defense is going to be the exact same, if not a little bit better. And the defense was already amazing.
They're going to be better because they don't have to spend 40 minutes a game out on the field.
That's a good point.
That's a good point. Towards the latter half of the season is they go out there, all right, they get the stop, they force a field goal or a punt, and then the turnover, and 10 seconds later, they're back out on the field. And what do you want them to do? Well, of course, the Jets gave up an 80-yard touchdown. Well, no shit. They just played for 5 minutes on defense and got 3 seconds of rest, and now they're back out there. What do you want them to do? Right. So yeah, I mean, although it's going to be executed the same and be as good in execution and player precision, it's going to be better because they're going to be more rested. It all ties into each other. It's amazing how that one simple thing, one good quarterback change, and I'm not saying Aaron Rodgers is as bad as good. He's great, but just simply consistent quarterback play changes the outcome of this entire team in the way it's going to operate.
Absolutely.
I mean, hands down, Aaron Rodgers is probably, if he doesn't win his 5th MVP, in the top 3 voting. I just don't see it any other way.
Yeah, he's got the narratives.
It's going to be Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, and probably like a Jalen Hurts in the discussion for MVP.
And Garrett Wilson's yak is going to help that crazy. They're going to throw, a simple, quick bubble screen to him for not even a yard of actual air passing. And Garrett Wilson's going to take it for 20, 30, 40, 50 yards because he's just shifty like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I made a joke earlier, what was it, a week ago to Zach. I said, and it's completely possible to happen that Rodgers wins MVP. Brees wins comeback player of the year. Quinnen Williams wins DPOY. Like, it's just all possible.
I wouldn't say comeback player of the year is possible. No. Not a shot at Brees. It's just the minute DeMar Hamlin steps on the football field, he gets it.
Yeah,
that's also true.
Fair.
Also true.
That one.
Like, it's impossible for anyone else to win it. Like, in a normal year where a guy didn't almost die on the football field and then make the final 53 for a team, absolutely, he'd be in the discussion because I think he's going to have a monster year once he gets back out onto the field. But I mean, DeMar Hamlin kind of takes the wind out of the sails on that one. Yeah. Otherwise, though, you could have offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, MVP, obviously, Maybe Saleh gets coach of the year if things go crazy, although I don't think he would, because adding Aaron Rodgers might take the wind out of his sails with the narratives and whatnot, because we all know MVP and coach of the year narratives are just as important as the actual performance. So that's the only bad thing there. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, the Jets are going to be in the running for a lot. The only thing I would say would be like the rookies, because offensively, I don't think Izzy Abanikanda is going to get enough touches to even be considered. And defensively, it's kind of the same thing with like Will McDonald. He's not going to be on the field enough to be like, in contention for that. But otherwise, absolutely. You could what is it? The hat trick. You could pull off a hat trick this year with
I'm okay with that.
with awards. Yeah, light work. Nothing major.
No, just top it off with an Aaron Rodgers Super Bowl MVP.
Sure.
There you go. There you go. Speak it into existence, baby.
Exactly. Manifest it.
Exactly.
But jumping over to the defensive side of the ball, because we've been here for an hour and we've given a lot of love to the offense, right? And we'll go back to it. But the defensive side of the ball, their coverage splits last year are so funny to me, not because there's anything wrong with them, because it's just Sauce Gardner made it all possible. That's the thing. Everything I'm about to say, it's because Sauce Gardner was there. Like they were 30th in cover 0 with 0.3% of their defensive snaps being out of cover 0. And that's because they didn't need to throw the house at teams. Their front four was good enough to just get home. They were 10th in cover 1 with 24% of their snaps, because why the fuck not when you have DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner just man up and lock down, right? They were 30th in cover 2 with 2.6% of their snaps. They were 27th in cover 3 with 28.3% of their snaps. And this is what I was alluding to earlier with the defensive rushing EPA per play, like the run defense EPA per play. Because nowadays, when you look at the NFL, a lot of teams like to run cover 3 as like their base package on early downs because it's good at fitting the run. Mm-hmm. The Jets said, no, fuck that. Our defensive line is good enough to where we don't really have to worry about that. Now, that's going to stop you from being like an elite run defense, but 16th is good enough. If you're good enough in run defense and elite in coverage, that's all you need. So I love that the Jets have a defensive line that's good enough where they can just say, fuck the norm. We're going to do what we want to do, and we're going to focus on the passing game, and we're still going to be where we need to be against the run. Like, that is awesome.
Yeah, and that kind of speaks to, I mean, earlier we mentioned like some of the, weaker spots on this team that is linebacker and safety, but does it really matter a ton, because their identity is that we're going to get after the quarterback with this just insane defensive line. And then we have Sauce Gardner, who is one of the best, if not the best corner in football. DJ Reed, who's literally one of the most underrated corners, and a really good slot corner that never gets talked about, and Michael Carter II. And, good luck, because you're not going to have time to throw. And if you do, there's 3 guys who can stick in coverage. So, they are a little bit weaker at, linebacker and safety. And maybe some of that has to do with, the run game, not being as elite as what the pass defense is. But as you said, does it really matter at the end of the day?
Yeah, and when you're in a league that is almost exclusively passing now, I feel like every year a new passing record gets broken or gets set. Yes, I would rather be better in pass coverage in a passing league. And we've seen this before with the Jets. When they've had the great defenses, there's been a certain corner that's been able to make an entire side of the field disappear from existence. And for the rest of his career, Sauce Gardner is going to disappear from the stat lines because nobody's ever going to look at him again. I mean, and fine, that's fine. Sauce Gardner could never have an interception ever again, or never have a pass deflection ever again, because he's never going to get thrown the ball. Perfectly fine by me. That's one of those positions where if you never put up a stat, that's great. Awesome. Never put up a stat, because they're never going to test you. And then, like Matt said, and I said previously, DJ Reed, one of the most underrated corners in the league. I mean, they're one of the, Hector said it. We have Batman. We have Batman and Robin over there. You know what I mean? So it gives you Revis Cromartie vibes, and I'm here for it. I'm here for every second of it.
I'm just saying, the last time we've had this conversation last year, I caught a lot of heat, and I'm not saying from you guys specifically, but I caught a lot of heat when I said this. We have Revis 2.0. Mm-hmm. And more, I am starting getting people to buy into it. Sauce Gardner is Revis 2.0. And this man, and me and Zach multiple times, we've had debates and conversations with people trying to debate Sauce Gardner if he's better than Patrick Surtain, or is he better than Tyreek Woolen, or is he better than Diggs? And it's like, well, you don't have much stats for him to compare because they don't throw his way.
Yeah.
Now, if they threw his way more, he'll get more interceptions. He'll get more pass deflections. He'll get more tackles. You'll see more of what he's capable to do. But when the man is literally scaring the shit out of quarterbacks to the point that they only want to throw to 2/3 of the field, I mean, you can't blame the man. You can't.
Yeah. And that's the thing, you know, I'm somebody that doesn't like to go too crazy when it comes to ranking rookies if we're talking like in the grand scale against the rest of the league, right? But Sauce Gardner to me is the best corner in football. And I think a big reason for that is the fact that we saw a little bit of it last year and it's only going to get progressively more obvious. He doesn't get tested. Teams already are not testing him. Whereas you look at Pat Surtain, he was in year 2 last year, had already proven himself to be a great corner. We saw Sam Darnold testing him last year. Like, teams are not afraid of Surtain like they are Sauce. And that's not even like a slight at Surtain because he's number 2 to me. Like, he is very clearly the second best corner in football. But he still has his moments where teams are like, okay, I think we can go against him. Sauce, it became pretty apparent about halfway through the year, apart from one play where a certain wide receiver in Chicago by the name of Claypool may or may not have mossed him, but that's neither here nor there. Teams started to kind of put away the idea of testing Sauce and throwing at him. And that only highlights not only how good he is, but it shows you how much better DJ Reed is than a lot of people think. Because when teams start to have to target DJ Reed, he makes plays. He's a playmaker. He goes up, he gets those pass deflections, he'll pick the ball off. And then it turns into, okay, well, I guess we'll go to the slot. And then, like Matt mentioned, Carter is no slouch by any means either. Is he perfect? No. Is he better than most starting slot corners in football? Absolutely. He's awesome. He's great in run defense. He holds his own in coverage. As your third corner, you're feeling pretty damn good about him out there. And then obviously you have guys like Bryce Hall who's out there, and it's a really, I would say, the best corner room in football. I don't think that's crazy to say by any means. Like, it's incredible.
We still also have Eccles, who was, if I'm right, a first or second round pick, and was a starter before we got Sauce and Reed into the mix. And you know, he started a number of games for us. Eccles is still a good fourth string, possibly third string corner that we have there. But what you're saying at the same time, like you said earlier, Mike, the safeties is still a concern. The safeties, we got a lot of injuries there. We haven't had a lot of people to prove themselves. We're just lucky enough that they don't test over the top as much because we have guys like a Reed and a Sauce. And mind you, even with the undervalue that people give Reed, the man was still ranked like 15th best corner in the league.
Right, and that's the number 2 guy. And it's just, you know, like I said before about Garrett Wilson, it's a pleasure to watch him play because of just the innate football ability that he has combined with the basics. It's the same thing with Sauce. I mean, just his placement consistently on wide receivers' hips, his ability to always know what's going on before it happens. I mean, if you ask Giants fans, Sauce is a fraud because Jalen Hyatt burned him on one play that was the most hyped up overthrow that I've ever seen in my life. But I mean, you know, whatever. It's not like he made the quarterback overthrow the ball because he was still in good position, but I'm not going to bring that up too much. But no, I mean, yeah, for sure. The Jets have some of the best DBs in the room. And, you know, we'll talk about it. We have talked about it. The safeties don't concern me much because you have to have time to target safeties. You have to have time to get the ball deep. And you just simply are not going to. Because insert name here is going to be trying to murder you with Black Air Force energy, whether it be Clemens or McDonald or Johnson or Quinnen Williams. I mean, it doesn't end. It never ends with the amount of people who are just going to be attempting to take your head off, you're not going to target the safeties. We don't need safeties. So, okay, it's not a great position. That's fine. That you're never going to target them. So, okay.
And also they upgraded safety too. Like Tony Adams is going to end up being a starting free safety, which wild for him that he was a UDFA last
Absolutely.
year. But in a limited sample size last year looked good, and the coaches love him so much he didn't play a snap in the preseason. He got the full you're sitting with the vets, with Sauce Gardner and all those guys. But also they bring in Adrian Amos too, who's a solid. I know he's not the guy that he was in his heyday in Green Bay, but he as your third safety, you could do a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah.
And like last year, they had their other starter was LaMarcus Joyner with Jordan Whitehead. Like LaMarcus Joyner was toast. He was done. He was finished at that point. So even though it's still a weaker positional group for this team, they still upgraded the position.
Yeah.
And then there's Ashton Davis, who just, I still don't know what to do with him.
He's got that quirked up white boy energy. That's all it is. Every once in a while, he wants to remind people he's there.
Good.
He reminds me of like
Mhm.
of a honey badger, like a lesser version of the honey badger.
He's a poor man's Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah,
Great value brand.
The thing is, when you bring in a guy like Amos, like Matt was saying, Amos, if you look at his stats, the man plays in 98% of the snaps. The man doesn't miss a game, doesn't miss a play.
Mhm.
So we're replacing a little bit of youth and a little bit more talent with guys that are more stable and healthier to stay on the field and make plays.
Yeah. My only concern with that, though, and Matt kind of brought it up, he's not the Adrian Amos of old, right? This isn't the guy who was playing next to Eddie Jackson in 2018 in that elite Bears defense. This isn't the guy who hated Bears fans and pissed us all off for his existence when he went to Green Bay. This is a guy who, ideally you're not playing him outside of the box, I would say. Like in coverage last year for Green Bay, he bordered on liability. And it's just because his athletic ability is starting to kind of, hit that downward slope. It used to be a big trend where DBs, when they'd hit like 30, they'd start to hit that decline. And we haven't seen it as often as of late, but Amos really experienced that last year. Now he still has his value, right? He's smart. He's not going to be out of place ever if he can help it. And he's one hell of a run defender. So I would almost, I don't know what the plan is for the Jets, but me personally, I would almost want Amos to play like a pseudo linebacker role more than safety for the Jets, just because, like I said, he's going to be good in run defense. And if you have him playing in which the Jets play a lot of zone, if you have him playing in a zone more in the middle of the field and just kind of watching what's happening with like slants and crossers and things like that, I think you would be a lot better off. And obviously, like Matt brought up, Tony Adams is a diamond in the rough. He really impressed me in the little bit of time he got to play last year. I still don't understand how he went undrafted. Like you look at his testing numbers and you look at some of his numbers from Illinois, like he was a solid safety prospect coming out. And then Jordan Whitehead is just good enough, right? Like he's a solid enough veteran. So while I am kind of worried about the safeties, it's not the end all be all, like this is what is going to be the Jets downfall. Cause like Zach said, you have to have the time in the pocket to target a safety to really make safeties pay. And you're just not going to against the Jets. It's just not going to happen. So, while there might be a play or two where something goofy happens, it'll be a very, 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 very rare occurrence that the safeties actually show their true colors, so to speak, for the secondary.
And let's not sleep on Trey Dean on the practice squad. He's still hanging around the team. So,
Okay.
He has a chance.
I'm excited for him. I think he's a developmental guy, probably more for next year, but I thought he looked really, really good in the preseason, like Adams did last year. Like you can never have enough guys, in the pipeline to develop.
Mm-hmm. And Salah and Obert have shown, like you were saying, David, that they love to have these pseudo linebacker safeties. I mean, this isn't like the first time that we've seen a Jets safety essentially be a linebacker. Looking at you, Jamal Adams. So this is,
that's a good point. I wasn't even thinking that far back. Yeah.
Well, it is. It really is a common theme with them to have their safeties up and playing that prototypical, like pseudo linebacker run stop defense. So it's I'm okay with it because again, you're not going to have the time to much target them in coverage. So have a blast. Do it if you can. And the occasional touchdown or deep play that you'll get, Merry Christmas, but it's going to cost your quarterback more to try it than not.
Right. Absolutely.
And I also like the fact I'm excited for Xavier Gipson because he's going to be a huge part in the return game and in the special teams, giving us great field position. And you know what Aaron Rodgers could do when he only has to move half the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Now wrapping things up with the secondary here, talking about the coverage, the last three numbers, excuse me. This team was first in the league in quarters last year. So like I said, there's a good bit of zone going to be ran with this team, and that's going to help out not only Amos if he comes up into the box, but also the linebackers as a whole, because like CJ Mosley, still a smart football player. I don't know how much I would trust him manning up on somebody, but if he's just got to watch his little piece of the field, then sure. Right. They were sixth in quarter half with 14.6% of their plays, which again, testament to Sauce Gardner. It's just saying, okay, Sauce, you're by yourself on that side. We're going to put everyone else over here and we expect you to do your thing. And he just does it. And then they were 24th in cover 5 with 0.4% of their snaps. And then jumping off of that, I could talk about the blitzing numbers, but we know the Jets don't blitz. They don't need to blitz. There is no reason for them to blitz. They'll do it from time to time, but relative to the rest of the league, they're in like the high 20s in percentages. So who cares, right? That front four, as much as we've talked about it, that's all they need to get to the quarterback. So unless you guys have anything else you want to add about the defense, I want to jump over to the offense and just talk about the run game, because like we said, the pass game is kind of irrelevant from last year.
It's kind of a little shocking before you move on how the Jets had changed their defense, because just, I would probably say 5 or 6 years ago, they were blitz heavy. Like everything they did resulted in pretty much stacking the box and sending 8 men. So to completely switch it around and you don't see much falter in that type of that drastic of a switch is just amazes me now, that you can just sit back now and be like, well, now, I mean, if we want to blitz, we can show you what we can do, but that's just, we don't have to dig that deep into our defensive playbook.
Yeah, that's the Joe Douglas effect. That's I finally built a team that, because I mean, you said it, we blitzed all the time. We as Jets fans like, oh my God, I wish we could just get a pass rusher. And now Joe Douglas is like, yeah, no, I got you. Don't worry. You want one pass rusher? Nah, I got all the pass rushers. Don't you stress. We got you. Yeah, that's the.
Yeah, you're hoarding them from everyone else. It's not fair.
Yeah, both on the way.
They went from never having a pass rusher to having all the pass rushers.
Yeah.
Listen, all I'm saying is if you guys get Nick Bosa, you got to give us one. You got to help out Chicago, please. I know one of you has to have a direct line to Joe Douglas. Just be like, hey, listen, we can spare one. Chicago is desperate. I've got a buddy that needs one. I will take Bryce Huff happily. That would be like fucking Christmas for me.
And then I'll take Darnell Mooney.
Well, no, hold on. We got to keep him. You can have Velus Jones.
No.
I know you must have loved those rumors, right? That Darnell Mooney maybe surprise trade.
I didn't believe him. I didn't believe him for a second.
To be fair, I didn't either, but I wanted to talk about that because
understandably so.
That's the exact kind of player I would love to add.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you for that. Now, when I saw that, I was like, okay, one of two things is happening. Either this is complete bullshit, or Mooney, after being like super supportive of the team and super supportive of Fields, doesn't want to be in Chicago anymore, which would be such a shock to me. But then Ryan Poles essentially said, yeah, I thought that was really funny that people thought there was a chance I was even thinking about trading Mooney. So I didn't believe it for a second. Although I won't lie, Bears fans are hyped up on the idea of trading for Chris Jones because he's not happy where he's at. And if that's what it took to get Chris Jones, by all means. But no, it would never happen. But I didn't think Mooney would be gone for a second. And it was so funny, like, not to get too off topic, but it was so funny watching Bears fans try to rationalize that, because they're like, okay, who have people been talking about in training camp all offseason? It's been DJ Moore and it's been Chase Claypool. It's like, yeah, because Darnell Mooney hasn't been healthy. He is nursing an injury and they don't want him practicing until he's 100%. That's why that's happening, not because Mooney's getting outplayed by Chase Claypool. Let's be real. Let's think
Notre
about
Dame
what we're saying for a
alone,
second.
right?
No, I love Claypool. I'm a Claypool defender, but he's not Mooney. Like
No.
Mooney is very clearly the better receiver.
Agree.
But yeah, like it's again, just to close out the defense, just to say it again, I am so jealous of the depth you guys have on the defensive line. I would give my left arm to have even half of it, hell, even a quarter of it in Chicago. It is not fair to everybody else. And I both appreciate it and kind of hate it because it's not fair. But on the offense, Jesus Christ. But on the offensive side of the ball, the run game is the only thing I want to focus on here because the passing game from last year, just throw it out the window. Everything's going to be different. Like they were low in play action. It took them forever to get the ball out. They didn't get the ball downfield effectively. Like their big time throw percentage was low. All of that will change with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. All of it. But the run game, at least in terms of the way they ran the ball, will probably stay mostly the same. Like this is a team that was heavy in outside zone. Nathaniel Hackett is a Luke. He's who taught Luke Getsy and is in this like Shanahanian offensive mindset that half the league is in. I brought up Luke Getsy because that's the Bears OC and he runs the same type of offense. It's a wide zone, heavy rushing scheme, so that'll stay the same. They were 23rd in outside zone, and I think that'll go up because Aaron Rodgers likes to operate out of shotgun a lot, and you run a lot of inside zone out of shotgun. It's hard to run outside zone out of shotgun because of the angles and the blocking. It gets all goofy. They were 8th in outside zone, tied for 8th with 34% of their snaps, by the way. They were 32nd in duo with 4% of their snaps. They were 4th in power with 14% of their snaps, and then tied for 13th in counter with 7%. For those of you who aren't super familiar with this type of run game, those are going to be your counter punches for outside zone. When defenses come out in like a bear front or something to fit the zone running game, you hit them with a little bit of a gap scheme, you pull a couple guys, and it completely throws off their rhythm and is a really good counter punch. And then additionally, tied for 15th in draw with 2%. Not surprising there. Draw nowadays is mostly used as like QB draws. And unless you thought running a QB draw with Joe Flacco would work, which if you do, please never go near a football field again. It's no surprise that they were very low. And then they were 8th in pin and pull with 11%. And again, that kind of builds off of power encounters like a counter punch. So I don't know if you guys have any more thoughts you want to add to the run game, because I feel like we've kind of done it justice, so to speak, with how much we talked about the running backs early on. But if you have anything you want to add, by all means.
Yeah, I mean, just for me, like, I think they're going to run the ball more than people expect. Like, I think a lot of people see, like, oh, they brought in Aaron Rodgers, they're going to be throwing the ball all over the yard. I don't necessarily think that. I still think they're going to want to run their offense with the run game and then build the passing attack through the play action game. And obviously, yeah, with Rodgers, you do have the ability to throw yourself back into a game if need be. But I think in a perfect world, they want to beat you by running the football and playing great defense, and having the ability to turn it on in the passing game when need be, I think is just an added bonus.
Yeah, I mean, that 100% just plays into the ways a lot of coaches, because it's all about clock management. It's all about controlling the ball. It's all about just manipulating your pieces. And I know that was one of the most, like, you score the most points and you win the game kind of statements, but remember why they drafted AVT. Remember why they drafted Mekhi Becton, because these are big guys who can move well, and getting them back, getting Becton finally back with his knee healthy, in the best shape of his life, getting AVT back. This is really going to help those outside, those outside zones, those outside moves, because you can't just have big, unmovable guys for those kinds of plays. Those require reach blocks, which I don't know if the average fan knows what a reach block is, but even at the high school level, which is the highest that I've ever played, it's a pain in the ass. You got to get your big ass out there. You got to get out, and it's a reach block. It's in the name, so you got to be big and agile for that. This is why they went out and they got those guys and they spent the draft capital, having them come back healthy. Having Breece Hall come back healthy. I know, we've talked about the running backs and the stables that they have, and, they're going to be able to rotate fresh legs all the time. but really having these guys back at the front of the line, the game starts and ends on the offensive and defensive lines. And to have those guys that you spent that kind of capital on to come back and play the way your scheme is, is dictating is going to be insane. That's really where we're going to see some beauty is if these guys play up to their potential. You're not going to see Dalvin Cook, Brees Hall, Izzy get hit, and Michael Carter get hit until 5-6 yards down the field, and by then they've got that full head of steam, and it's now off to the races, and they're just going to dance, around DBs, and it's gonna. I really think that more so than the running backs, the line coming back healthy is going to be the most important thing.
And you hit it on the nose. I was going to bring it up, Zach. I'm not worried, honestly, at all about what the running backs are going to do. I think they're going to do exactly what they need to do. It starts and ends with the big boys up front, and if they can remain healthy. And what helps is that vera-tucker is going to be playing left tackle. He's a little bit, he's younger, he's more agile, he can move quicker. He's by far the best lineman we have on the line. And moving Mekhi Becton over to the right tackle, where he doesn't have to take all the pressure of going against the best defensive player on every team, trying to protect Rodgers' backside and stuff like that. As long as the boys up front can remain healthy, I mean, the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit for both the run game and the pass game.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys actually brought someone up that I did want to ask about in particular. As Zach called him earlier, big ticket Mekhi Becton is finally looking like he's trending upwards after however many years he's been in the league. Former number 11 pick, just hasn't been able to put it all together. Do you guys still think there's a world where he turns out and he's this fantastic tackle that he was promised to be? Or do you think that ship's kind of sailed?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think that's absolutely still on the table. It's for him, it was never an issue of talent. When we saw him as a rookie, he was really, really good. It's been injuries the last 2 years. He gets in 2021, he gets hurt in the first game of the year, doesn't return. Last year, hurts his knee in training camp, out for the entire season. Bummer. It really, really stinks. But he lost a ton of weight. He's in incredible shape. He switched sides and was able to do that while playing at right tackle. The thing that's always going to be hanging over his head is if he can stay healthy. But, if he goes out there and plays 17 games this year and looks good playing next to AVT, which I don't see why he wouldn't, then yeah, I think absolutely he could be a part of this team's future. But the first step is really just, remaining healthy and being able to play a full season.
For sure.
I always have been an adamant supporter of Mekhi Becton. So I 1000% think that he's going to be exactly what he's been billed as. He's had, like Matt said, he's had the injuries. They've been well documented, but I think a piece of this that I think goes by the wayside a lot when we talk about football players and what goes into it is his whole mentality. We see this year now, it's just Twitter. It's what he puts out on his own, but we see in his whole mentality that he's had a whole shift and he's bought into this system. So, if his body can stay underneath him and his mind is there, I mean, yeah, this guy is going to be more than what he's been built for. And I'm excited to have him back. I think he's going to be one of the best offensive linemen in the league.
Yeah, me and Zach have been, since day one, love the fact that we've gotten Mekhi Becton, and we've both agreed where it just comes down to health. Now, I won't necessarily say the ship has sailed on what he could have or can be. I just don't. I think when he got to the Jets, there was so much hype, so much pressure. The team was still trying to build its identity, and with everything going on, he got his injuries and stuff, and it kind of like just took everything and it unfolded. Now with what they got going on, they got better pieces, they got better talent. He got the pressure away from being the LT. He 100% still can be great. I'm not saying he will live up to the hype where he first got into the NFL, but he can still be extremely great. Now, mind you, if I still would have loved for the Jets to go out and get a Zach Martin or trade for a Bakatari, but just for the extra depth, But Mekhi Becton, 100%, and I think me and Zach said this last year, that if he just moved on over and let Vera-Tucker take that pressure of the LT, he can become probably one of the greatest right tackles we've seen in a long time.
Well, first of all, I respect the super high expectations from Hector and Zach, obviously. I agree that the ship definitely hasn't sailed. Like I'm pretty optimistic with Becton as well. I don't know if I'd say I'm as optimistic as Hector is necessarily, but I think as long as Becton ends up as an above average starting tackle, the Jets will be happy. Like the big thing is, and Matt hit the nail on the head, he's got to stay healthy. With him losing all the weight, slimming down, getting himself not only healthier, but in a manageable size. Because you guys know when he came out, it was like, this is the biggest human on the planet. How does he move the way he does? And that's all fine and dandy when you talk about it, you know, at its highs, but at its lows, when you have that much weight on a body, it stresses the bones a lot. It makes you a lot more susceptible to injury. It makes you a lot more, I don't want to say fragile because it's weird to describe an almost 400-pound man as fragile, but, you know, not far off from it. And now you slim down, you get yourself in better shape. I think the health is going to come with that. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't. And if he can stay healthy, you know, you guys mentioned he showed a lot of flashes his rookie year. If he builds off of that and has been working behind the scenes, which I won't lie, I haven't followed him the past couple years. I would almost say I forgot he was on the Jets until I started doing my research for this podcast. I'm not going to lie, which I regret. I am all in on big ticket Mekhi Becton now, which I love that nickname. I've never heard it before. I am going to use it in my day-to-day life now for this man.
It's
I'm
a Twitter
obsessed
handle.
with it. Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
okay.
I wish I could. You know, I should have never said nothing. I should have.
Well, he's been the big
It was my own genius.
He
No,
drafted
Well, even if you didn't come up with it, I'm just I mean, no disrespect to Zach, but I was sure that came from somewhere else because that's
damn.
Oh yeah, he's
Not-
been
that's
the
not-
big-
no.
That.
drafted him.
that's just such a New York nickname. That's the only
Yeah.
reason why I say that. Like, I figured that was a name the Jets fans assigned him at draft day, and it only, you know.
Actually, didn't it come from a beef with Rich Cimini? Didn't Rich Cimini say something about him being too big or something like that, and he changed it to Big Tick? I think that's where it evolved from.
I
Yeah.
love that.
So he changed it. He changed it to Big Bust, I think, when he went back to training
Yes.
camp last year. But yes, there was some Samini beef from last year. I don't
Yeah.
remember the exact details, but you're right. He came in wearing a Big Bust t-shirt.
Yes.
I
yes.
love
I mean,
that.
let's be all honest. Rich Cimini also is probably one of the worst Jets like coverage guys, because I've never seen a guy who covers a specific team bash the specific team so much like Rich Cimini.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm convinced he's an undercover Patriots fan. Absolutely convinced.
Yeah,
But
listen, I get it. Like, beat writers, they're supposed to say like down the middle, but it's not down the middle. It's skewed so far negative, and I think a big part of it is to rile up the fan base and get the clicks. I hate the
Oh yeah.
Jets hate for clicks, and we've seen a lot of that this offseason, but it's
We're
annoying.
gonna
Well,
continue.
that's
Yeah.
as shitty as it sounds, that's just the current state of journalism. You know, if you're a journalist, you're going to flub a little bit. You're going to, you know, exaggerate the truth. Like, I won't lie, even somebody who's like, I guess I would technically be considered like an amateur journalist because I do journalism, at least adjacent work, and I don't get paid for it. And I won't lie, I've flubbed things a little bit. I've delved a little too far deep into the fullback propaganda, like when the Cowboys
Who,
landed.
you?
No, like when the Cowboys landed Hunter Lipke, who was my number one prospect on my draft board, which may have been for clicks in its own right. I said they won the draft after signing a fullback as a UDFA, which, by the way, he's their new goal line back and made the 53-man roster. So fuck you to anyone who called me crazy for that. But you know, I flubbed the truth a little bit, and that's just the current state of journalism. Now, I would never do it to be hateful, to be spiteful, and I feel like a lot of people do nowadays. And I won't lie, I'm not too familiar with the guy that you guys are talking about, but it certainly seems like he would be like that. Every fan base has one, right? The Bears have an old asshole named Hub Arkush or Arkush. I don't know how the fuck you say his name. he tries to spread rumors about players and all sorts of different stuff. Like this offseason, for example, he tried to say that the Bears would never extend Cole Kmet because he didn't want to be in Chicago because he hates Justin Fields and he doesn't think Justin Fields is a good quarterback. And then Kmet comes out, becomes the 10th highest paid tight end in football with a brand new flashy extension. And you see all these, mic'd up moments of Fields and Kmet joking at each other, and like Kmet showing up to practice wearing a rag on his head and Fields joking, saying, "Man, that's great. It covers up your big ass forehead." Like, guys that are talking to each other like that on the practice field don't hate each other. They're boys. Don't hit me with that bullshit. And like I said, every fan base has one of those guys. It sucks. I hate it. But the unfortunate truth is we're talking about him. We're giving him airtime. He's in our minds, and that's his goal. And that's what they're trying to do nowadays. Journalism's dead. That's what I'm trying to say. As somebody who is...
When you get a chance, look up Rich Cimini, and you're gonna be like,
I absolutely will after this.
I fucking hate this guy.
Yeah, after this, I definitely will. But yeah, as someone who is in their junior year of college, minoring in journalism, I will tell you, I think journalism is about that. Like it is really sad where we're at with it.
We need more greenies. We need more greenies. I want guys that go above and beyond to hype them up just so we could be disappointed later.
Yeah. And hey, that's been my goal with this team preview series. I have tried my best to remain as optimistic for every team as possible. I have yet to talk about the Buccaneers, so we'll see how that goes. I did talk about the Cardinals, and I gave a couple guys there some praise. But it's definitely, really sad to see how negative journalism has gone. And I love players that fight back against it and like embrace it, like Mekhi Becton wearing a bust shirt. That's hilarious. I love that. I want more players to do that. Or like, I don't know if you guys remember the whole fiasco with Javon Kinlaw and that 49ers dude, Grant Cohn, where Kinlaw was like ready to fight him because he was running his mouth so hard. And then Grant Cohn came back and was like, "I wish he would have hit me so I could have sued him," and retired on the spot. And then Kinlaw was like, "You're not a man. You're a bitch. You're bitch made, dude." Like, I love that. I love players clapping back at the media. And I get, a lot of guys don't want to do it because it looks unprofessional or something like that. But when you have a guy that is a thorn in your side like that, that's just constantly ragging on you and constantly going at you, fuck them. But just do a little gesture.
Some people take it too far. It's one thing to be like, all right, his play isn't like, Mekhi Becton.
Right.
His play hasn't been where they drafted him. He was drafted at number 11, and he's barely, he's not playing to his ability. But Cimini was like after him, bro. It was like, yo, he came into training camp like
he's
fucking
fat, he's overweight.
Pounds, he's a fat.
That's ridiculous.
After him. And Becton's
that's
like,
ridiculous.
"Yo, I would crush you. Who are you talking to?" Like,
and that's the best part. All these journalists are just scrawny little white dudes. Mekhi Becton could eat him. And that might be taken as a fat joke. I promise it's not. I just mean he's that much bigger in stature than him. Becton's 6'8"? Like he's fucking enormous.
Yeah, he's a monster of a human. But yeah, no, that it gets, that's the problem, is when people cross the line to the personal.
Yeah.
It's all good. I mean, we all sit here, right, on our own platforms and talk about this player and that player, and they're not living up to expectations, or
absolutely,
they're going above there. It's part of the gig. But when you go into it like, oh, he broke up with his girlfriend, that must mean he this, and this, like, leave his personal life out of it. Leave his weight out of it. You know what I mean? Like, come on now.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with being realistic about a player. I'm not saying everything needs to be sunshine and roses, but don't, like you said, don't come at the man's personal life. Don't insult him as a person. If he's not living up to your standards as a player, comment on his play. Comment on how in week 15 he didn't get out of his stance quick enough and let up a sack. Don't call him fat. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's especially when he was taking those shots at him. It was right after Becton was posting pictures with his new trainer and eating regimen, and he had already lost like 50 pounds.
Yeah. Like the dude's trying. I can say I'm not afraid to admit it. I'm a big dude. Losing weight's hard. It's really fucking difficult. And I know people will look at that and say, well, he's a professional. He needs to do it. I don't care if he's a professional. It's the mental side of things.
He also had knee injuries. What do you want him to do?
Yeah, he
What-
can't. Right. That's a great point. He
Right.
had 2 knee injuries. He's not running around. You know, he's got to
Right.
rehab
Go
those.
get your cardio in. Like,
Right. What do you want him to do? Hop on the fucking treadmill? Like,
He's also 6'8", over 300 pounds. The man
that's what I was
still
about
needs
to
to
say.
eat.
Is a
Right.
man who can literally
He's
move
the-
mountains and you go out there
Yeah.
and run on your broken knees. Okay, jackass.
yeah, it's absurd, man. I'm glad he's getting in a better space, and that's why I'm so excited for him this year, because I just want him to shut people the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, even I want him to shut me up for forgetting he existed for a quick minute there. Like, I want to be
mean-
like, man, I'm a fucking idiot for ever doubting Mekhi Becton. That's what I want to be
There you
saying
go.
next offseason on this
Just this
video.
preseason alone, they have shown that the run game has improved immensely when he's on the field compared to when he's
Yeah.
not. And even the pass game has slightly improved in the blocking when he's on the field.
Yeah, it's a zone blocking scheme where your linemen get out and move. Imagine having Mekhi Becton running at you. What do you
Yeah.
do? What are you
that's-
supposed to?
Lay
You
down
pray to
and
your
hope
maker,
it doesn't
and
fall
you
on you.
right. You pray to whatever the fuck you believe in, and you hope you make it out alive. That's what you do when you have Mekhi Becton running at you. It's
What did Chris Rock say in The Longest Yard? I'll teach you anything. Just don't eat me first.
right. Yeah. God, like I said, I hate dropping it because it sounds cringy to say in the moment, but like I'm putting together an all agenda team, right? Like you'd have an all pro team, but it's all players that are on my agenda that I'm pushing for this year. And I'm fairly confident in saying when it's all said and done, I will have Mekhi Becton on it because I'm so pumped for him, dude. I really am, especially with the off the field stuff. Like I'm a bigger fan of the guy than I probably thought I would be here a year ago.
Yeah, he's definitely poised for a breakout season. I know you don't
Mhm.
really say that about offensive linemen too much, right? You know,
right.
but
We should, by the way, normalize offensive lineman breakouts.
100%.
They are people.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. But no, he's definitely poised for being everything Jets fans want him to be and more. And really, him being in the mental headspace is going to be huge, and B, taking that pressure off of him mentally and physically, moving him over to right tackle is going to be. It's
Mhm.
just going to be absurd. I mean, anytime you're the left tackle with a right-handed quarterback, your life is just miserable. You're on an island. You
Mhm.
have no help. You better pray to God that, you're doing everything perfectly. And that wears on you mentally. I'm not saying he can't live up to that or he can't do that mentally, but just coming back from 2 years of straight injuries, maybe he'll eventually move back to left tackle and be the best left tackle that's ever played football. I don't know. But for this season, living in the here and the now, moving to right tackle at his health and at his mental state is going to be huge. Huge.
Absolutely. But moving off of that and finally jumping into the off season, the first question I want to ask you guys here is obviously with every off season, you bring a lot of guys in, but you also have to let some guys go. So out of the losses that the Jets suffered, and I'm not just talking about free agency. I'm talking free agency, trades, retirement. What loss do you think is going to be the most significant for the Jets this season?
For me, I think it's Elijah Moore. I understand why they traded him. It was very like he was not happy when they were winning games because he wasn't getting the ball and things obviously didn't go well. But I was hoping that once they fired Mike LaFleur, they'd be able to iron things out because of how talented he is. I know the production wasn't really there in like these massive numbers in the first 2 years of his in the league, but there was a stretch in his rookie year where it looked like he was just going to blow up and be a really, really good player. And, I don't think he's the same caliber of receiver as a Garrett Wilson, but I think it would have been a really nice fit as a number 2 receiver on this team. And I think the Cleveland Browns got a good one with Elijah, but that one stung a little bit when they traded him.
I'm going to stay in the wide receiver room, and it's going to be a guy who never really got the chance and got to be where he was supposed to. It's Denzel Mims. I will refuse to leave that train, and in not a weak receiver room, because we've talked about how good it is, but he could have had a chance. Imagine that body, that speed, and Aaron Rodgers just uncorking it. I mean, it's every year I just want it to be his year, and this year it could have been so much more than any other year. And now he's out there. He's a free agent. The Lions did cut him, so the Jets still have a chance. I don't think they will, but it hurt Denzel Mims. I've always been just praying for his time to shine, and that sucked for me. I really wish he'd come back.
I'm going defensively here. I know we only had him for last season, but we've already talked about how our linebacker core, I mean, is just not that they're horrible or bad, but they're just a weaker part of the defense. I really wanted them to re-sign Quan Alexander. I thought he did a phenomenal job at playing the linebacker position for us last year. He's first of all, he's feared. People heard Quan Alexander and was like, fuck. Like, this man is feared. He's fast. He gets sideline to sideline. He can cover. He loves to rush. I mean, I really wanted them to re-sign him to at least another 1-year deal, possibly a 2-year deal, and help the linebacker core again.
I respect that.
Yeah, no, that's totally valid. Just obviously not from a personal perspective, but jumping in from an outsider, I think Corey Davis, obviously with him just recently retiring, is going to be a pretty impactful move. Because now you're going from him being your wide receiver 2 to Allen Lazard being wide receiver 2. And I know he's got the connection with Rodgers and the chemistry's there, but he's one of the most inconsistent receivers in all of football. Like, he's somebody that, he'll get open downfield because he's fast, but it's like every open throw is a 50-50 ball with him. His hands are so inconsistent. And, I'm speaking from experience. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Lazard wide open downfield and I'm like, oh, fuck. And next thing I know, he's dropping a wide open pass with a safety 15 yards behind him. And it's like, oh, thank God. You breathe a sigh of relief. He is probably my favorite Packers receiver of all time for that reason. Like, it's so 50-50 with him. It's either a 50-yard touchdown or you want him off the team. That's the result of every pass to Allen Lazard. And Corey Davis, if nothing else, was a consistent football player. And I think him and Aaron Rodgers would have meshed very, very well because of that consistency and his experience in the league and his knowledge of just what he needs to do and being where he needs to be. So I think that's going to be a tough loss. Now, it's not insurmountable. Like, you can overcome losing Corey Davis. This isn't the downfall of the Jets or anything, but I do think that's a decently important loss. And then another loss, I'm bringing this up not because I think it's huge for you guys, but just because I'm curious. What do you guys think of Dan Feeney? Because he just became a Bear very recently, and I have not had a chance to look at anything with him.
He has a mullet and wears sunglasses. He's really cool, but
Yes.
he's really bad.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a backup in Chicago, so it's not the end of the world, but we traded a 6th-round pick for him, so that's not good.
He was the body for us.
Okay.
He's fun. He was chugging beers at the Islanders playoff games a few years ago.
Saw that,
yeah. So if you want, send him to a Blackhawks game and chug a few beers, like, he's totally good for that. But
yeah,
you want him blocking for Fields.
I have heard more about him chugging beers than I have about how he plays. So, like,
that's about the storyline.
Yeah, there's a reason for
yeah.
that.
There was. They did a press conference right after he got traded for it, and they had a couple Bears players speak at it. And Cole Kmet's my favorite player in football, so anytime he talks, I listen. And they asked him about Dan Feeney, and they were like, "What do you think he brings to the locker room? Are you excited to have him as a teammate?" And Cole just kind of smirked. He was like, "Well, I can tell you he likes beer," and that I laughed at it in the moment, but the more I think about it, I'm like, you couldn't have said like, he brings energy to the offensive line, or like he's more help to protect Fields. It's that he likes beer. That's I don't know. I mean, like I said, he's not going to start for us. I think he's like our 3rd-string guard, 2nd-string center right now, and that's just because Tevin Jenkins is on IR and our offensive line's kind of jumbled a little bit. Once Jenkins is back, it'll be different, but. I mean, the fact that we give up draft capital for him and that's how we're talking about him is a little concerning for me.
Draft capital for a guy who likes beer. That's though. That's the only way offensive linemen want to be talked about. So he's happier than a pig in shit.
No, absolutely. He's living the dream. And I mean, he's a Chicago kid. Like, he grew up right outside of Chicago. I forget where exactly, but I mean, I'm sure he's, like you said, happier than a pig in shit. But I'm starting to get a little concerned if the more I think about it, because at first I was like, okay,
you
cool, you
won't be
trade for a backup
concerned
lineman.
as long as he's not on the field.
Fair enough. I'll take him as a locker room guy. I'll never meet him in the locker room, but if all the other guys love him and he's having fun, then fuck it.
Great for the vibes.
I can tell he's great for the vibes. He's got immaculate vibes. But looking at some of the other guys that the Jets lost this offseason, obviously, like I mentioned, Ty Johnson, who is from my hometown, which I know there's a lot of like, how do I want to put this? There's a lot of drama around him getting released and everything that happened with that, because he was saying some things and it was obviously he got released to make room for Aaron Rodgers. So do you guys have any thoughts on that? Because I haven't kept up with it, and I'm kind of curious because I kind of got to root for the guy, being that he's the only active NFL player from anywhere near where I live.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think he was upset because he got hurt training. The Jets wanted him to get the surgery. He got the surgery, and then they cut him after he got the surgery.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which that stings, obviously, but positive spin. I mean, he was still with the team when he got the surgery, so like all that was covered. So I kind of see both sides of the argument on this one. Like, optics wise, kind of looks shitty, and from the player side, like I would be bummed too. But like the Jets kind of did take care of him with getting him the surgery. So I think he signed onto a practice squad somewhere, right? I don't know.
Yeah, he's with Buffalo.
Okay, yeah.
Ironically, yeah.
Yeah, but I always liked Ty Johnson. I thought he was a solid back.
Yeah, for what he brings to the table, he's good enough. Is like your third, fourth running back. I think you'd feel pretty good about him as like a change of pace guy.
Right, but when you've got Dalvin Cook, Brees Hall, Michael Carter,
there's no room for him in New York. Yeah,
night, you know what I mean?
Like, yeah,
I get it. I agree. Like Matt said, the optics are bad, but in the end, for me, what it boils down to is it's business.
Absolutely.
That's what it comes down to. Is it's just business. And in the moment when they said get the surgery, you were good for business. In the moment that you wound up getting the surgery, you stopped being good for business. And that does suck.
Yeah.
And he has every right to be mad about it. But it's business.
Yeah, and I mean that's, you can get into a whole other conversation about the running back bullshit that's happened all offseason. I say bullshit because it's like bullshit in the sense that it's not fair. Not bullshit in the sense that like running backs are whining. Like they have legitimate criticisms with everything going on. And, I try to be as human as possible when it comes to talking about football, because these are people. They have feelings. You got to take that into account. But obviously, when you're looking at it from a team standpoint, players are assets. And as Zach pointed out, if the asset's not good for business, they're just taking up money that you can use towards an asset that is good for business. So it gets really tough. And like in that situation, like Matt said, they would have covered his surgery and he would have been fine there. So I can't be too mad at the organization for that. But again, I'm sure he's upset, and I would say he has every right to be. And I think it's funny that he went to the Bills right after, which, granted, no disrespect to Ty Johnson, I don't think it's like he had a choice. I'm sure the Bills are just like the first team to reach out, but he's still somewhere. He's making a little bit of money, and that's what I care about. I'm glad he's getting something.
When you also look at it, though, it's the fact that, all right, so someone needs to get cut so we can make room for this guy to come in. You weren't the best back in the room. Like, it would be an argument and a conversation if you were one of the better, but you were the weakest link. Like, sorry.
Yeah, and like Zach said, it's the business aspect of things. It's just how it plays out, as unfortunate as that is. But looking at some of the other guys here, obviously Braxton Berrios, another quirked up white boy, headed to a division rival in the Miami Dolphins. Mike White, who I also think went to the Dolphins.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken. Sheldon Rankins, LaMarcus Joyner, Joe Flacco, George Fant, Nate Herbig, and then a bunch of other names that honestly I don't think are worth rattling off. Just a bunch of, bottom of the barrel roster guys, which shout out to them. You're doing more than I've done with my life. No disrespect to you. It's just in the grand scheme of things perspective, maybe not exactly relevant. And then some of the retained free agents, obviously, the Jets made a massive move, shelling out much deserved money to one of the most important players on their team. Some would argue, the face of this franchise. And of course, I am talking about Nick Bowden, the fullback. He got paid by the New York Jets. Thank the Lord. I'm so glad. I know we were talking about offensive lineman breakouts earlier. I think Bowden might be in line for a breakout here soon, because he's somebody that I've been following, obviously, since he was with the Lions, and he had a couple fun highlight plays there. And then obviously with the Jets, he's had a little bit of injury issues, and he's a guy that is a capable blocker, has a little bit of athletic talent, and we saw what happened the last time Rodgers had a white boy fullback that was a good blocker and had a little bit of athletic talent with John Kuhn. So fingers crossed we get some Nick Bowden, John Kuhn plays this year. That is what I'm going to be watching the Jets for. You can keep Garrett Wilson, you can keep Sauce Gardner and that other big defensive lineman that they gave a bunch of money to. You can keep all them. I'm here for the Nick Bowden highlights. I've said his name 3 different ways in the past 30 seconds, but I do not care. He's just simply better.
The Jets have one Fairweather fan for their fullback. Love it.
That's awesome.
Awesome. But in all seriousness, they gave Quinnen Williams a lot of money, and he deserved it without a doubt. He got, I believe, $95 million, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, it was a little bit more than whatever Dexter Lawrence and Deron Payne got. It was like a touch above that. But as you said, well deserved. He's just entering his prime now at 25. Had that big breakout year. Really the heart and soul of this defense. Sauce got a lot of love and attention, deservedly so, but Quinnen Williams is such an important part of this team and was arguably the MVP of that team last year. He's so good. I can't wait to watch him again this year.
Yeah, he's
glad we finally got a lot. The Jets, if it's one thing with the Jets, they always have a long tenured, great defensive player. No matter how bad the Jets play, they always have one defensive player that they keep long term, and he's one of the greats that end up in the Hall of Fame. We've seen it with Ferguson, we've seen it with Revis, and Quinnen Williams. We got locked up for the next, I don't know, 5 or 6 years.
I think it's a minimum of 5 years.
So he'll get another fat contract if he stays healthy and continues to play well, and he'll be a Jet for life.
Yeah, you can't look at the way Quinnen Williams has been playing and look at his talent level and look at just how he is the focal point of the center of that defense and not give him the money. I'm frustrated that it took so long. I'm happy that he doesn't have any hard feelings, about it taking so long. But yeah, they inevitably had to pay him. He was going to get paid by somebody, so I'm happy they kept him home. And obviously, the Jets pass rush and run defense is better for it.
Yeah. And not only did they keep around Quinnen Williams, but they also kept around his brother Quincy. He also got I don't think it was an extension. I think he got re-signed this offseason. Yeah.
I think that's the reason why they got Quinnen Williams re-signed to that extension. It was the fact that his brother signed and was like, yo, bro, let's make this happen.
Yeah, they talked a lot about how much they loved playing together too, and how it was a cool opportunity. And yeah, for Quincy, I thought he took a nice step forward in his development last year. One of his biggest issues was missed tackles, but he improved there a little bit, and is just a lightning rod with a helmet strapped to him. He just flies around the field and makes plays.
Absolutely. A couple other guys here, obviously, pair of edge rushers in Carl Lawson and Bryce Huff, who are both, again, guys that I would love to have in Chicago, but unfortunately the Jets are hoarding them to themselves, which understandably so. They're awesome at what they do. And honestly, I think Carl Lawson being in New York is probably the best for him anyways, because if he was asked to be an every down edge on another team, I'd be a little bit concerned given the fact that his knee may or may not be a ticking time bomb. But the fact that he's pretty much only going to rush the passer here in New York, it's the perfect spot for him. A couple other guys, Jordan Whitehead, Connor McGovern. The other Connor McGovern, as I like to refer to him, because the other Connor McGovern plays a little bit of fullback in his spare time. So I have to pick favorites, unfortunately, there. You got long snapper Thomas Hennessy, edge rusher Solomon Thomas, defensive tackle Isaiah Mack, and then Greg Zuerlein and Adam Parkey. So any of those guys that I just brought up there, if you guys want to touch on them a little bit, by all means, go for it.
I'm happy they brought back Zuerlein. I'm not going to lie. Oh, God, sorry about that. Forgot to have work alarm on. I take car naps before I go into work. But no, if you look at it, your average, score per player, points per play in the NFL is like 1.7 points per play. So if you have a good field goal kicker that can hit it, from a decent portion of the field, every drive ends or it's not per play, per drive. If every drive ends in a field goal, you're going to win the game. So having consistent field goal kicking is something that's irked the Jets for years. So that's one of the big things to get Zuerlein back, who's been one of the better kickers that the Jets have had for a minute now. So he's got range, he's got accuracy. I don't have to bite my nails and pray to God he's actually going to make this. It's pretty decently automatic with him. So
yeah, and special teams matters, by the way. Like someone we didn't mention who was signed was Thomas Morstead. Like a massive upgrade over Braden Mann at punter. Like that stuff matters when you're 2-14 like the Jets were in 2020. Like that was very far down the list of concerns, was like not having a kicker and having a terrible punter. But now when you're trying to be competitive, like that makes such a huge difference. So a good call on Greg Zuerlein, and I would also add Thomas Morstead to that list too.
Yeah, I mean, you're preaching to the choir with that.
I hate the hate on Braden Mann. The kid was a great punter, and he got put in a shitty situation where he also had to be our fucking kicker, and it just made him look bad.
I love Braden Mann, but my only issue with him is that he was inconsistent. He'd kick 70-yard bombs, and the next time shank one for 20. So that was my only, I really like Braden Mann, and he was one of those I really wish, like Denzel Mims, I really wish you worked out. I really, really do. But he was just too inconsistent.
Line drive punts killed him.
Yeah,
the hang time was the big issue. I'm nerding out here talking about hang time on punts, but those line drive punts, man, they got he had 2 returned against him last year for that reason.
Mm-hmm. Special teams matters, man. It's 3 phases of the game for a reason.
But I will agree. Thomas Morstead, that man, and I love the fact that after he fucking rips one down the field, he sprints off the field as fast as he can.
Yeah, him coming off the field after holding a kick is pretty fantastic.
Yeah. But jumping off of the guys that were retained and looking at third-party acquisitions, obviously we have talked at length about Aaron Rodgers. He is the man, he's the bad man, he's the new captain of the team, all that good stuff. So looking at the other free agent signings, who are you most excited to watch suit up in the green this year?
Man. Well, I don't know.
I mean, I fal like the low-hanging fruit here is Dalvin Cook, right? I mean, obviously, adding that to the run game is going to be one of the more electric things to watch there. So I'm going to have to take the low-hanging fruit simply because I think it's going to open up so much in this team, with his pass catching abilities, outside runs like we've talked about. So for me, it's going to be Dalvin Cook.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a good answer. I like that. I would be in on some Dalvin Cook.
I think I'm just more excited to see Brees back and see what he's going to do. I'm expecting Brees
Don't even care about third-party acquisitions.
Nope. Everything else is just extra in the pot. There's nothing I could say Dalvin Cook, but I know what he's going to do, and everybody else is just going to play their role. So if I just think about it, I'm excited to see about the guy who was potentially going to be Rookie of the Year, coming back from an ACL, and if he can maintain that again.
That's fair.
And that's fair. Yeah. I mean, I won't lie. I'm more in on Brees than I am Dalvin, just because I love Brees Hall. I loved him coming out. I saw a little bit of Matt Forte in his game in college, and obviously I'm going to gravitate towards that. But Dalvin's going to be awesome. He's going to be the best RB2 in football when it comes time for Brees to kind of kick into gear and take over. But looking at some of the other free agent signings, obviously we talked about Alan Lazard and Adrian Amos a little bit. You have another Rodgers buddy and Randall Cobb, who is literally only employed because he is Aaron Rodgers' best friend at this point.
100%.
Yeah, no pun intended. He is a husk of the player that he once was. So it's surely something that he's still employed. But some other names here: Mecole Hardman coming over as like the third receiver on this team. Just a fun. Look, he's got juice and he can make some plays here and there. I'm curious to see how the Jets will use him on offense. Chuck Clark got brought over. I believe, was that a trade or was that a free agent signing? I can't remember.
7th round pick. I was excited to watch Chuck Clark. I was bummed with that injury. I think he was going to kind of play.
Oh yeah, that's right. He got hurt.
Yeah,
I totally forgot about that.
No, all good. That's why they got Amos, was because Chuck Clark ACL, but they're going to play the same role, like that box safety kind of role.
Yeah. Other names here: Quentin Jefferson, Al Woods, who I adore. We talked about him a little bit early on. He's like 38 years old. He's still one of the most solid nose tackles in all of football. And I just love Big Al. He's one of my favorite.
He's the monster of a man too.
He really is. But he's one of my favorite random, almost journeyman players in the NFL. I listen, if there's one thing I love, it's an underrated position in football. And to me, the nose tackle is the fullback of the defense. So I love Al Woods. Other names here: Billy Turner, Wes Schweitzer. Obviously, you guys talked about Thomas Morstead. Randall, I already said Randall Cobb. I don't know why I'm reading him off again. And then a couple offensive linemen with Yanni Kajust, I believe I said that right. And then Tristan Colin Castillo. And that's about it for free agency. So moving over to the draft. I want to preface this with a question. Now, normally I would just jump right in and ask, who is your favorite pick? But before that, I want to ask you guys this because I feel like the Will McDonald pick has gotten a lot of shit, right? Like a lot of people have looked at this as a really bad pick, and myself included. When I did my draft grades, I did not rank this very highly. I'm not going to lie. So I want to give you guys the opportunity to state your case. Why do you think this was a good pick? And if you do, why?
Well, I very much so wanted an offensive lineman, and I was upset when offensive tackle wasn't taken. But what's interesting is the Jets do this series. It's kind of like Hard Knocks, but on their YouTube channel, One Jets Drive. And they showed in their draft room that even when Broderick Jones was still on the board, they had Will McDonald as their number one guy. Like that's the guy that they really wanted. And
interesting. Okay.
He looked really good in the preseason. That spin move is just downright nasty.
Sure.
He's not going to be utilized a ton this year, and I would have preferred an offensive tackle for sure. But Robert Saleh loves the speedy, bendy edge rushers, and I think he's going to have a lot of fun with him. So in year one, might not look great because he's probably going to play like 30% of the snaps. But when Carl Lawson's contract is up, when John Franklin Myers' contract is up, he's going to step in. I think going to be a pretty good pass rusher.
Oh my God. How did we talk about the Jets defensive line and no one brought up John Franklin Myers?
I love
that just occurred to me.
Because
He's awesome.
There's so much talent that it's
I know, but how is he the odd man out of everybody? Like he's, in my opinion, probably the second best guy on the it's long, but he's like the second best guy on the line.
Seriously.
Not wrong.
Yeah.
And I mean, Matt's right. I'm pretty sure everybody in the tri-state area who, roots for the Jets let out a groan when McDonald was drafted. Because obviously, linemen were on our high list of we really fucking need this. But having watched him in the preseason, having watched his style of play, it definitely is a developmental pick. Now, whether that is the kind of pick you want to go for so early in the draft, that remains to be seen. But far be it from me to question Joe Douglas at this point. There was a time early on in his tenure that I did pretty heavily, but at this point in the game where we're sitting, I didn't love the pick, but far be it from me to question him, because like Matt said, when the contracts start to run up, you're going to have a young, talented, now seasoned guy that can step right into that role pretty damn easily. So I can't complain about it at this point.
Yeah, Matt and Zach pretty much hit it on the nail. I mean, I like Zach said, everyone that's a New York fan probably put out a groan, and everyone, like Matt said, was looking for Broderick Jones to get picked, and they took Will McDonald. But from what I've seen, the only thing I differ from what they're saying is I think that motherfucker could start right now. I think you could just slide him in. He's gonna have some growing pains, of course, because he's a rook, but I think he could slide in right now and just wreak havoc and be one of the better defensive players on a football team.
See, I'll put it this way for me, right? Like playing devil's advocate, representing those who don't think it was a great pick. For me personally, first of all, I wish they would have went a different direction position wise, right? Offensive tackle, like Zach and Matt mentioned, was a position I really thought they should have attacked. If not that, then there's other directions you could have gone. I almost would have been okay with them going like linebacker because a kid from Iowa, Jack Campbell, was still on the board, and I thought he was incredible. I thought he was a first-round talent. I see so much Brian Urlacher in his game, and we mentioned early on there were issues at linebacker for the Jets, at least on paper, or they could have went safety, went with a guy like Brian Branch, who I know fell to the second round. That should have never happened. He should have been a top 15, 20 pick, right? There were directions they could have went that I think would have not only fit the need better, but would have been players that I thought were better than Will McDonald. Like when I was doing my draft grades, Will McDonald was the 12th highest ranked edge on my board. I had like a late second round grade on him. I really wasn't a fan. And I will say part of that isn't his fault. A lot of that is because Iowa State, was playing him at like 4 tech, which I don't know why. He should never play inside the tackles. He should always be lined up as far out as possible and just send him at the quarterback. I don't know why they thought that was a good idea, but they did. And I know that'll be different with the Jets. When he's on the field, he'll be lined up as like a wide 9 and will just be shot out of a cannon at the quarterback, right? And he's going to be good at that. Don't get me wrong. When he's on the field and he's doing stuff like that, he's going to be good at it. But he's such a almost role player and less of a like real dominant edge that I just don't think the value of taking him in the first round was great. Now, granted, the Jets were in a position where they could have made a luxury pick, and that's more what this feels like to me. But not only that, there were better edge rushers on the board, in my opinion. If you wanted a speedy edge rusher that was a little more complete, Nolan Smith was there, and I know people are worried about his size, but it does not matter for him. The size really does not matter. The way he's able to maneuver his body and use his speed to generate power and strength absolutely blows my mind. And I think he would have been an awesome New York Jet because not only does he bring that speed and that juice off the edge, but he's a fantastic run defender. If you wanted a more like experimental athletic edge rusher, I would have even taken Adebare over him in the first round. I had a higher grade on him. Like I'll put it this way. The big hang up for me is less that the Jets took an edge and more that I wasn't a fan of Will McDonald, the player. But I do see at least how he fits in the defense, and I can see why the Jets would like him. To hear he was number 1 on their draft board blows my mind. Like I was shocked by that. I didn't know that until Matt brought it up, but I don't know. I'll put it this way. I can see why people really don't like it, and I am in that boat, but I can also see the optimism from Jets fans. The more I think about it, and the more I think about how he fits in the defense and what his role is going to be and what they're going to ask him to do, it makes more sense. But it's still not a pick I'm quite in love with, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I was the same way. I still don't love it. My favorite pick from the draft was actually Joe Tippmann. But
Okay.
I totally get where you're at though with Will.
So speaking of Tippmann real quick, I want to ask you, Matt, since you mentioned he was your favorite pick, how do you feel about taking him over a guy like John Michael Schmitz?
So a little surprising because JMS was definitely my number 1 center, but he's 3 years older, or 2 or 3 years older than Joe Tippmann.
Fair.
And what the Jets like so much about Tippmann is his ability to get out in space with his size and athleticism, which is something that
Sure.
JMS doesn't have to that extent. So it was more there. I think they were shooting for the higher ceiling than the higher floor player.
Okay. And I mean, again, that's another pick that I don't necessarily agree with just because I think JMS is such a great player. But this is one that I understand and can stomach a lot more than the Will McDonald pick. Like, this isn't one I think is outright bad or isn't a player that I don't like because I like Joe Tippmann. He was, I want to say, my third highest graded center. And I agree, he is more athletic than John Michael Schmitz. And that's the big thing. When you run a wide zone scheme, you need interior linemen that can get out into space and hit somebody. And Joe Tippmann is better at that. But, like I said, this isn't a pick I disagreed with or I thought was bad. But I wanted to ask because a lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people that I've seen because of how much people liked John Michael Schmitz and how high they were on him. Like, for me, he was my second highest graded interior lineman, only behind Peter Skoronsky. And, that's kind of iffy because some people looked at him as a guard, some people looked at him as a tackle. But either way, it was like 1A and 1B. They were both top 15 players in the class for me. So the fact that he was in the second round, let alone not the first center off the board in the second round, blew my mind. But again, the more you think about it, the more you step back and are like, okay, what kind of offense are the Jets running? What do they want out of a center? It makes more sense. It definitely does.
And I think if you also look at the Jets draft in the context of they didn't need this draft to hit right now. They got the draft that hit right now last year, and then they built on that hitting right now with free agency. This was a draft of let us build for the future. So when you have that flexibility, in talking Tippmann, in talking Will McDonald, you don't have to get the best player now. You can shoot more for, okay, who has the higher ceiling long term in the system we want to run. So, okay, we'll go get Will McDonald in the first round. And everyone's going to hate it, but that's the guy we think is going to, perform the best over the long run because we don't need him in this moment. We're going to go get Tippmann, right? Because in the long term, he's going to have the higher ceiling because I don't need him to hit in this exact moment. If he does, fantastic, but I don't need it to go right here, right now. So when you frame the Jets draft in that kind of context of it's all about building for the future, which again, I know is one of those, they score more points than they win the game statements, because obviously that's what the draft does, is build for the future. But you're not drafting, like when you draft a team in the NFL, you're drafting players, you're drafting, I need them to go, especially your first, round 1, 2, 3 guys, you need them to hit here now. The Jets didn't have that need this year. They had the luxury of being able to go, let me get guys for the long term. Let me get guys that have the higher ceilings in the longer run. So I think that kind of plays, a little bit more for where it differs than what most people would have thought.
Sure. Yeah. And that's absolutely fair. I can't say I disagree with that. But obviously Matt already gave his answer for his favorite pick. So for Hector and Zach, who was your favorite pick from this class?
I'm going Brownlee. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really excited. He's made a couple of beautiful catches, and he's got a lot of spatial awareness to him. He's obviously got the hands. I love the way he moves his body in the air. It's just it's cool to see a guy be able to contort himself and be able to make some of the catches that he's made. So I'm a big Brownlee fan. I guess technically he's an undrafted free agent, isn't he? But still,
that works.
I'm excited to see Tippmann if he hits, because we've seen since Mangold we've struggled at playing this, our center positions. But I'm gonna go with Donald because I really think he's going to pan out. Even though people weren't happy with that pick. I think he's probably gonna start off slow and not get a ton of playing time early on. But I think later on in the season, he's going to play such a huge role and take on so much more like game time and get a bunch more timing on the field and just get in the field of play that he's going to make big time plays.
Yeah. And I mean, Will McDonald's a player that is going to be exciting when he's on the field no matter what. Because if you have that much juice as a pass rusher, you're going to at least make splash plays that are like, oh my God, how is a human being capable of doing that with their body? And that is going to happen from time to time at the very least. So if nothing else, he'll probably sell jerseys and he'll be a fan favorite, right? And that's, from a business side of things, that's never a bad idea. Now, like I said, I don't necessarily agree with Hector in saying that I think he's going to get a lot of PT early on. I think it's going to take a little while for him to get that, if it even happens this year. But I do think he'll have plays this season where people will pick them out and kind of be like, okay, this is what the Jets were seeing. This was the vision. And I can kind of see where they're coming from. Now, that's not me saying I'm going to eat my words after a year or anything, but I would be lying if I said I didn't think there would at least be flashes of something special, of something fun. But looking at some of these other draft picks here, obviously he brought in offensive tackle Carter Warren out of Pitt. He's pretty solid. I was happy with that pick for you guys. I thought it was good value at the very least. Drafted him right around where I had him graded. Israel Abanikanda, we already talked about. Super fun player. And then these last couple guys, yell at me if they're not on the team anymore, because I probably should have checked the Jets cut downs and I didn't. I know Zach Kuntz got cut, which I want to yell about in a second, but Zaire Barnes and Jarek Bernard-Converse, did they make the 53?
Bernard-Converse went to IR.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Zaire Barnes did make the team, fourth linebacker.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I like Barnes as a developmental linebacker. I think he's somebody that, will learn a lot from CJ Mosley. I think that's going to be huge for him, getting to learn from a guy like that. And I think eventually he's somebody that can be a fun, kind of chess piece for the defense because of his athletic traits. And then Bernard-Converse, I'm sad that he's hurt because he would have been so excited. Like, obviously, I'm sad when any player's hurt, but I'm especially sad that he's hurt because he's such a fun player. Like, I'm sure he would be frustrating on your own team because he's so boomer bust. It's like every single play. I don't care where I'm supposed to be in coverage. I don't care what my assignment is. I'm going where the football is. And there are times where that is super fun and he's going to make crazy plays. And then other times it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Just stay in your zone. Just stay in your lane. So it's tough that he's not going to get to play next year. Hopefully he gets healthy quickly and can do something at some point. Is his injury season long or is it like the 4-week IR thing?
I think it was season long. I'm pretty sure they put him on before the actual 52. But we haven't even seen him practice. Like, he didn't even practice in training camp.
Damn, really?
See him at all. Yeah.
That's tough. Now the 7th round pick, Zach Kuntz. I am so mad that you guys did not keep him on the 53 man. Like, I get it. I don't think it's like the worst move in the world or anything, but it makes me so mad because I love Zach Kuntz. He is such a fun football player. Like, obviously he's the most athletic tight end ever by testing numbers. I had like a 3rd round grade on him and you guys got him in the 7th round. And I was like, oh my God, this is a steal. He's going to sneak his way onto the 53 man and like halfway through the season, he'll get a couple snaps. Rodgers will hit him on a couple deep balls and the Jets will be like, oh my God, we have a super weapon at tight end, and his connection with Rodgers will grow. And then he goes to the practice squad right off the bat. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on him or want to add anything.
It's just odd man out. It's like Bam Knight in the backfield. Unfortunately, someone's got to get cut. And I mean, you've got 2 established tight ends. You've got Jeremy Ruckert in his 2nd year. It's just unfortunately that you just happen to be the low man on the totem pole.
Sure.
Yeah, and I love the upside and the athleticism that he had, but like, he was probably the Jets' like 5th best tight end even in training camp. Like, Kenny Yeboah looked better than he did, and even EJ Jenkins, I think, who they ended up cutting too. At times I thought it looked a little bit more impressive. But I'm glad he made it through to the practice squad, because that's a interesting developmental, maybe red zone kind of weapon.
Yeah. Yeah, I was really surprised he made it through waivers. I really thought somebody would claim him. But yeah, I mean, I get it. He's super raw. The Jets have a couple guys that are just more established, and this is a team that's trying to win football games right now. They're not interested in sitting around and seeing maybe this guy can be something. You stash him on the practice squad. You see if he's going to be something that way. And, you have actual tight ends that are going to contribute right now that are going to dress. I get it. I'm just sad. I was really hoping he would have snuck his way on and made some crazy play halfway through the season that put him on an upward trajectory. Because I love tight ends. I love tight ends, especially guys that are willing to block, and Kuntz is more than willing to block. But yeah, I mean, Matt's got a great point. Maybe he'll turn into some red zone target down the line, and the Jets will get him worked in at some point. But moving off of the draft and kind of wrapping things up here, jumping into our expectations for next season. One last question, kind of a two-parter here. Record-wise, what do you think the Jets are going to look like next year? And you can either go ceiling and floor or a flat prediction. And then outside of Aaron Rodgers and Sauce Gardner, I'm going to restrict you from two players. Who are you most excited to watch for the Jets next year?
I'm going to go, I think they win 11 or 12 games this year. I think they are fighting for right there with the Bills for the top of the AFC East. And for me, it's Garrett. I just think he is going to absolutely explode this year. I don't say this lightly because this never happens in Jets history. He was their first 1,000-yard receiver since 2015, which is a really long time. I never predict receivers to go over 1,000 yards, but like he might get close to 1,500 yards this year, which that sounds like insane to say, but that's how good I think he could be. And just that connection with Aaron Rodgers is going to be so good.
So on the last episode of our podcast, I said it to Hector, and I'll say it to you, I can't get 14-3 out of my head. It's just where I'm sitting at. I don't know if I'm, like I said earlier in the night, I don't know if I'm just high on the train right now. I don't know if I'm just drinking the juice too much, but 14-3 is where I'm at. And Jermaine Johnson is going to be Defensive Player of the Year. I think him and Quinnen Williams are going to be fighting for it. And I just really like Jermaine Johnson this year. So I'm super excited to see him play. He's put on a lot of muscle in the offseason. He looks absolutely fantastic. I cannot wait to see him just tear shit up.
That's valid.
Yeah, I told Zach, and like he said in our podcast, I said 12-5. Possible for maybe 13, but I'm going 12-5. And I'm excited for two players. I like the Garrett Wilson, but I want to see what Quinnen Williams is going to come back with. I think Quinnen Williams is going to go ape shit and minimum 15 sacks this year. Minimum.
Rocks with
That's
it.
valid. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to see Quinnen Williams, if he hasn't already, really jump himself up into that like Aaron Donald, Chris Jones tier for interior defensive lineman. I would say he's already there personally. I think there's an argument to be made that he's, I would say arguably the best, but I would say second best 3-tech in football right now. Like I think Chris Jones is a little bit better, but still second behind Chris Jones is a pretty damn good place to be.
It's a nice place to sit.
Mm-hmm.
Being the top anything, like top 5 in your field, when your field consists of the 0.00001% of the population of the world, that's a damn nice place to be no matter what.
The best thing about it was that you didn't make him angry at the organization. You got this young 25-year-old, you gave him exactly what he wanted. Now he's just going to go out and play thought-free football and just tear shit up for the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, obviously the player I'm most excited to watch is Nick Bottom, but I can't say that. I got to give a real answer, whatever, a non-stereotypical answer. So I'm really, well, no, I know, but I'm just saying it would get stale if every one of these I was just like, yeah, I'm excited to see the fullback. Like you got to keep people on their toes, right? So very close second, as I already mentioned early on, is Mekhi Becton. I'm really excited to see what he's going to do this year. I have a lot of hope for him. I'm optimistic for him. I'm rooting for him, all that good stuff. As for a record, it's so tough for me because I know this is going to be taboo, but I really like what everyone in the AFC East is doing, except for the Bills. Like the Bills are the only team where I'm like, I don't love what's happening here. Like the Patriots, I think are a team that aren't getting talked about enough. Granted, I do think there's a split between the other three teams and them. Like I'm not going to try to say the Patriots are going to win 12 games or something. Like they're going to be an 8-win team, but they're going to be a good 8-win team. They're going to be an 8-win team that is a thorn in a lot of people's sides. Probably going to split a couple division, couple division series and things like that. Miami, I am in love with everything they're doing. Like their defense, I'm obviously a big Vic Fangio guy. They've got him over there. Mike McDaniel, the freaking prodigal son, the disciple of Kyle Shanahan himself, plucked from the Shanahan tree and turned into one of the best young offensive coaches in football, and what he does with the running game and how he uses that to develop what Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle can do when he's getting to a back. Like, I love everything that's going on over there. And then the Jets, I mean, we've been sitting here for 2.5 hours raving about how freaking good this football team is. So it's really tough for me to, like, at least between the Dolphins and the Jets, and even then, the Bills are going to be good. I know I said I'm not as high on them, but it's not like I think they're going to suck. It's just like all these other teams are trending up, and I feel like the Bills are kind of going like lateral, but they've still got Josh Allen. And when you have Josh Allen, you're going to be in every football game you play in. So it's tough to weigh where I'm at. Like, I think this is going to be a double-digit win football team, no matter what. Assuming everyone stays healthy and nothing insane happens, which, knock on wood, I would say like floor ceiling, like 10 to 14 wins. The Jets are going to fall somewhere in there. And I know that's like a very conservative answer, but it's, like I said, it's just so hard for me to kind of place everything. I want to say I would give the Jets the best chance to win that division, just because, you know, you look at the other teams. Miami's offensive line is iffy. The Patriots are the Patriots right now, which I know is insane to say out loud. And then the Bills, like I said, I don't love what they're doing. But I would say, if I gun to my head, if I had to pick one, I would probably say like 12, 13 wins is about where I'd put them. And I mean, this Super Bowl is the limit, or, you know, the sky's the limit. This team could go all the way and win a Super Bowl this year. Rodgers could pull a Tom Brady. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But at the very least, they're going to go to the playoffs and they're going to make a little bit of a run. Again, to go back to this idea that this is going to be a 9-win football team, I don't see it.
Absurd.
It's insane. Like, something would have to go catastrophically wrong for that to be the case. And again, knock on wood, hope that doesn't happen.
I mean, last year things went catastrophically wrong, and they were still a 7-win team. You know what I mean? You can't tell me with the improvements that catastrophically wrong still isn't worth 2 more wins. You know.
Well, to be fair, catastrophically wrong is like Rodgers goes down and you got Zach Wilson back out at quarterback again.
All right, fair enough. Let's not like ever say that. Because if that happens, I'm coming to find you. All right.
No, like I said, I don't think it'll happen. I'm sure the Jets will be fine this year. No, either way, it's going to be must-see TV anytime the Jets are on TV. They're going to be a super fun football team at the very least. You're going to have a freaking Bears fan rooting for Aaron Rodgers, so that should tell you all you need to know.
Cold day in hell.
Hell froze over.
Exactly. Exactly. But again, it's less I want Aaron Rodgers to succeed and more I feel for Jets fans, and also it would be the best fuck you ever for Rodgers to leave Green Bay and immediately win a ring.
The best.
Like, it's pure. Like, I'm sure there was a part of you guys that felt that way when Brady went to Tampa.
Nope.
I guess Brady was winning rings either way.
Yeah,
that's fair. I guess that's the difference. Yeah,
I was rooting for Brady's failure every day of my life. Like, it didn't change then.
You know, I guess I didn't think about the fact that Brady already had 5 rings going into that, 6 rings, whatever.
6.
Rodgers has 1. Yeah.
Also,
Rodgers,
in doing it, he set NFL history as being the first hosting team to win a Super Bowl in their own stadium. So, you know, of course, you know, in the fuck you to the Patriots, again, he has to set history. So, yeah, no, absolutely not. Did I ever root for Tom Brady? Not for 1 second.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I don't blame you. I've told you guys before, I said it last year, I like Brady. I grew up a Brady fan. But that was just more out of a respect to good football than anything. Because Brady was dominating during my formative years, and the Bears would get not to the playoffs. You know, they'd finish with like 7 wins. And then me and my dad would sit down on the couch and watch Brady, and he would teach me football by showing me what Tom Brady was doing and explaining to me why Bill Belichick was calling what he was calling. So Tom Brady is very much burrowed into my origins with the sport. So maybe that's why I've got a soft spot for the guy.
Understood. Totally get it. If he wasn't in my division for 20 years, maybe I'd feel differently.
Yeah, if he wasn't
and
teaching
that's the
me
thing.
misery with every fucking pass he threw, then yeah, maybe. But
No, and
he was too busy
like I
teaching
said,
me about how I hate life. So
right, and I get it. I dealt with Rodgers for 20 years. I totally get it. Totally understand. Well, not 20 years. It's when did he get drafted? 07? 04. So 19 years, right?
18.
what's a year amongst friends?
Either way, 18, 19 years. The majority of my existence on this godforsaken planet, I dealt with Aaron Rodgers giving me misery twice a year on loop, like fucking clockwork. Okay, like I totally get it. I totally get it. At least you guys never had to deal with Tom Brady jumping out of the end zone and going, "I own you," like that.
Yeah,
hurt.
no, he just,
No, I
you
just
know,
had to watch
he
him
just,
win.
you know, for my entire life since I was born, just gave me pain and misery, and also won 6 Super Bowls at the
Yeah,
same time.
I was gonna say he might not have jumped out of the end zone saying "I own you," but he does wear 6 Super Bowl rings. So I mean, yeah.
I can't. I'm trying to win this battle. I'm trying to one up you guys, and I
Sorry,
can't do
bud.
it.
Sorry, bud. You can't one up a Jets fan in misery. It's just not gonna happen.
That's a good point. I was fighting a losing battle to begin with. They're the only fan base that's more miserable than I am.
Yeah, sorry, bud.
Except for maybe Cleveland, but they've never even had like false hope to feel misery. They're just dead.
That's true. Your own franchise runs out on you in the middle of the night.
Yeah, that's tough. But all that being said, I think that about wraps us up here. So before we go, if you guys would like to plug anything, by all means, the floor is yours, and I will make sure to include all of your links down in the description below so people can go and find them.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a blast. Matt
Absolutely.
O'Leary NY, Matt O'Leary NY on YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, pretty much anywhere you can find content. I'm there talking about the Jets.
Yeah, I obviously want to echo Matt. Thank you for having us on again. It's always a blast, man. I'm breaking down the tape. Just Google us. I know we took a little bit of a hiatus for a while, but you know, such is life. So you know, in the infamous words of Shaq, Google us, Chuck. Find us everywhere, pretty much everywhere where you get content. You'll find me and Hector, a couple other guys from Breaking Down the Tape that make up our little conglomerate. Just talking shit, drinking, and talk about sports.
He said what he said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, and I promise this isn't a shot at you, Matt, but I really thought this episode was gonna be just me and Matt for the majority of the summer because you guys went MIA, and I was like, oh no, I hope there's like nothing going on. So I was afraid to DM you guys because I didn't want to be like, you want to come talk football, and you'd be like, no, I'm currently going through the worst period of my life ever, and be just to feel like a complete asshole.
No, we just got out of it.
And I mean, that happens,
David. It's always a miserable part of my life.
'Tis the existence of a Jets fan, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, all their links will be down in the description down below. Definitely go check all their stuff out. It's definitely worth it. And thank you guys for coming on. I truly appreciate it. It's a ton of fun. It truly, you know, I don't talk about this enough. The fact that there are people out there willing to take almost 2 hours and 40 minutes of their free time out of their day to come talk football with me is incredible. I love the internet for that reason. It's wonderful. But that being said, you can check out my links down in the description as well. I've got a pair of podcasts called Bear Down Boys and Run the North. They're both down there in the description. You can check me out, Miller Football _ on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like down below. Helps out a ton. Shows you support the channel. Shows you care. I really appreciate it. And make sure to subscribe as well. We are dropping one of these a day for the rest of August. I guess the rest of August. Today's the 31st. Leading up to the start of the NFL season. I am really cutting it close with these videos, but it's all right. We're going to get them all out before the first Sunday. I'm not going to get them out before the first game, but the first Sunday, and that's what matters. So definitely check that, or definitely make sure to subscribe. You'll get all that. And we're going to be talking about football throughout the season. maybe I'll talk about the Jets again when they're like 7-0 and Aaron Rodgers is on pace to break every passing record ever. Again, can't believe I just said that out loud.
Yeah,
But all that but all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you guys again for joining me. So to everyone out there watching, and to the three gentlemen joining me here today, I hope you all have a wonderful day, evening, night, afternoon, whatever time of day it is for you. I hope you enjoy it because you're all wonderful people and you deserve it.